Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Top of the morning to you. It is 2 minutes past 6. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. A packed 4 hours to come. And the fallout continues following the defection of former Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick to Reform UK. It's the only show in town. It is the political story of the year so far, with a war of words now breaking out between the Conservatives and Nigel Farage's insurgent party. So where does this leave the political right as the Conservatives brand Reform as a bunch of liars? Who wins this battle for the soul of British conservatism and, more importantly, the battle for votes at the next general election? Is the real winner Sir Keir Starmer as the right fight like rats in a sack? Has Kemi Badenoch been emboldened by this row? Is she weaker or stronger now? And is it too soon to write off the Tories? Let me know your thoughts on that. What now for the political right in this country? Front pages are coming in thick and fast. Daily Telegraph, Kemi Badenoch saying Britain is not broken. Is it? That is today's question. Is this country broken? Let me know your thoughts. My number is 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. I'm carrying a minor sniffle this morning at 4 minutes past 6, but I won't be silenced. There will be truth bombs aplenty, including in today's Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. Now, yesterday on the show, the former Conservative Justice Secretary and Lord Chancellor, Sir Robert Buckland, no less, accused his former friend, Robert Jenrick, of borderline racism. Because recently Jenrick was in the Midlands and said it was like a slum and said he hadn't seen a white face on his visit there. Was that racist? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Was it racism? Was it prejudice? Was it just stating facts that he hadn't seen a white face, reflecting a rapidly changing society that no one voted for? 0344 499 1000. That is Dolan's Dispatch. And let me tell you, I'm not pulling my punches. It might get me cancelled. Good. Senior management don't like it when I say that. They've had a few, you know, we want a 6 months of no cancellation, apparently. Executive producer of the show today is Ted Jeffrey. He wants a quiet life. He doesn't want a cancellation on his watch. That's what he said. He was actually smoking a cigarette outside the building this morning. He said, no one gets cancelled, not on my watch. As he dragged on a Lambert and Butler. He's old school. Big Ted. We don't just have the biggest opinions on the show, the best calls, the best texts, the best voice notes, the biggest names as well. Richard Tice, no less, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, live on the show at 8:45 this morning. Is Britain broken? So much to get through, a whole ton of studio guests. One of the best connected political commentators in the country, Charlie Rowley, live in the studio at 6:15. It is busy, but I can't do it without you. So give me a call, pop a text in, and as the saying goes, let's talk. I do have the minor sniffles. I hope you're well this morning. How are the conditions for you where you are? I feel like things have warmed up a little bit, but I've gone the other way. We've had the cold snap. Now I'm carrying a mild lurgy. I think it's the man flu. In fact, I can't lie, I'm hoping it's the man flu because do you not find that a sort of a little bit of a flu is quite nice? You're sort of in bed for a couple of days, it wouldn't be bad. Put your feet up, watch Netflix, listen to talk, watch Julia Hartley-Brewer as you blow your nose. I can't think of a better way of living your life, but there you go, each to their own. The Times newspaper, PM under pressure to get rid of Wes Streeting. You thought that it was the political right in this country that were at war. You thought that the Tories were rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Well, let me tell you that our governing party is in political meltdown as well. 3 cabinet ministers hit out after toxic row. Sir Keir Starmer is facing calls from cabinet ministers and colleagues in the party to sack the Health Secretary Wes Streeting for disloyalty amid deepening splits in his top team. Ministers are increasingly frustrated by the Health Secretary's forthright public pronouncements and privately accuse him of putting his leadership ambitions before the party. Let me tell you that Wes Streeting has wanted to be leader of the Labour Party since he was a toddler. He's wanted to lead the party when he was a twinkle in his father's eye. Wes Streeting has wanted to lead the Labour Party since God was a boy, is how long he has wanted to lead that party. He's incredibly ambitious. Here's a question for you. Would he be a better Prime Minister? I would take Streeting. I would take Streeting. Couldn't be any worse than Starmer. He's to the right of Starmer, which is good news because the facts of life are conservative. This country, I don't care about, left, right, Tories, Reform, Lib Dem, Labour. I don't care who fixes the country. I don't care who does it. I honestly, they can have a red rosette, pink, blue, black, green. I couldn't care less. I just want someone to close the border. I want someone to axe net zero, and yes, to have policies which encourage solar panels and the wind, and there's no problem with it. No one minds a mix. Everyone's happy with an energy mix. That was the plan before the ideology of net zero. People were like, oh yeah, well, we're going to have oil and gas, and we will also have nuclear, and we'll have windmills, and we'll have solar, and we'll have wave power. And before the environment became politicised, everyone was happy with the mix. So I'd go back to, Streeting, better than Starmer. I mean, still a socialist, of course, but at least a more diluted version. I don't care who does it. I don't care who closes the border and scraps net zero. I don't care who gets immigration down to a sensible figure, which is 50,000 per year. And that would just be a couple of care workers, really, a couple of nurses. Jobs are good 'un. I don't care who does it, but will Labour do it? I don't think so. And Keir Starmer is going to cling on to power. But this is a very interesting development. Now, Streeting is a much better politician than Starmer, more articulate. The guy is on manoeuvres. He's not even disguising it. Essentially, here's what's playing out here. Wes Streeting is Labour's Robert Jenrick, right? This is a guy that's gone AWOL. It is the Wes Streeting show. And what I will say is he's embarrassing the government quite a lot with many of his pronouncements, and he's talking a lot of sense, which is why he's not long for this world. But look, don't get me wrong. It would be the lesser of two evils to have Wes Streeting in number 10. Would it be an improvement on Starmer? I suspect it would. I think that if Starmer went, it's actually bad news for his opponents. Met chief in Maccabi fans fiasco, retires at 52. How the other half live? This is a guy that misled a House of Commons Select Committee, this police chief in the West Midlands. He misinterpreted and misappropriated evidence from Dutch police about the threat of these Israeli fans, essentially cooking it up, sexing up the dossier a la Alistair Campbell, and protecting essentially the Muslim community within Birmingham, completely throwing Jewish people under the bus and Israelis who ought to have been able to send travelling fans to the Aston Villa Stadium, Villa Park, which is one of the great iconic stadia of football in this country. What a source of national shame that Israeli fans couldn't come here to support their team and to watch the beautiful game and to celebrate in our second city of Birmingham. And that's because that region has become so politically toxic. You've got an independent MP who's, of course, four square behind this copper, who's been able to retire rather than be fired, therefore escaping the consequences of his actions of misleading a House of Commons Select Committee, of misinterpreting data, material, footage and evidence from Dutch police about Maccabi fans. And a man who has made a decision which is political in regard to whether that match went ahead and who attended, rather than a security issue, which is his job because he's actually a copper. He's not supposed to be political. He's not supposed to take sides. He's not supposed to make the world a better, happier, sunnier place. He is there to police football matches, something he dramatically failed to do. 52 years of age. His last day in a post that paid him, wait for it, £220,000 a year. What is it with these people who always seem to fail in an upwards direction? He oughtn't to be able to leave on his own terms. What a disgrace. The Guardian newspaper, back my Greenland plans or face tariffs, says Donald Trump. Donald Trump threatened yesterday to impose tariffs on countries that did not go along with his plan to annex Greenland, increasing pressure on European allies who have opposed his effort to take over the Arctic territory. It's interesting, isn't it? I'm very torn about this. I don't have the geopolitical insight. What I will say is that Greenland is a NATO country. I think it will be a little awkward, to say the least, if the United States were to invade a NATO territory. I think that would be tricky for the world order. It's not my favourite thing. I don't like the idea of independent sovereign nations like the United States or Britain or anyone else annexing countries. It's the sort of thing that Vladimir Putin does. It's the sort of thing that China do. The only thing I would say, and I like to look at everything at 13 minutes past 6 in the round, I like to look at everything 360. What I would say is that Russia aren't happy about this, and China are not happy about this. And therefore, if China don't like it, China, and if Russia don't like it, maybe it's not such a bad thing after all. The truth is that we need a strong America. If we don't have a strong America militarily and economically, we're all done for. Don't buy this guff that Donald Trump has walked away from Western interests, that he's somehow anti-European, he's anti-democratic. Far from it. But the bottom line is that it is America first, and he's putting his country first. He's making it stronger, which I would argue is good news for us all. I will watch the Greenland situation with keen interest. What I will say, folks, is he's going to get his way. However it is that he manages to co-opt Greenland, it will be achieved in the course of his presidency. By the way, is it just me, or is he absolutely owning it on the world stage? Peace deal in Gaza. The news today, installing Tony Blair to oversee the rebuild. Potential peace deal in Ukraine. No one's tried harder to get peace than Donald Trump. The removal of Maduro in Venezuela, which has led him to receive the Nobel Peace Prize from the current holder. A robust approach to China. Is he, in terms of foreign affairs, the finest president that we've had in a generation? I think he is. Watch this space. Daily Mirror, Reform chief blasted. Farage can't be trusted with Britain. Defence Secretary warns of threat to national security. Reform are not fit to keep Britain safe, the Defence Secretary has warned. It comes after Nigel Farage said he would not vote for a UK peacekeeping force in Ukraine. John Healey said, I wouldn't trust him with national security. Well, I'll tell you where national security starts. It starts with cheap energy, and it starts with a firm border, and it starts with a healthy economy. We don't have any of those things at the moment, so Labour are in no position to talk about national security in relation to Reform UK. iWeekend, spy Jenrick takes Tory secrets to Farage, but new power struggle starts in Reform. Daily Mail. After female nurses win landmark tribunal over trans colleagues sharing changing room, Labour is told now protect all women. The Darlington nurses last night urged ministers to stop dragging their heels over national guidance on single-sex spaces in a landmark tribunal decision. A judge ruled that NHS bosses had violated the dignity of the 8 female nurses who won their legal challenge against a transgender woman being allowed to use the changing room. This isn't complicated, folks. This isn't science at 16 minutes past 6 in the morning, which is that there are 2 sexes. You have a lady and then with the female parts, and then you have a gentleman with the male parts. There are 2 sexes. That is the official position of the Supreme Court, no less. It's also a fact verifiable via a cursory glance through a GCSE biology textbook. And I haven't completely forgotten my GCSE biology with the nucleus of the cell. Do you remember that? And I think there's 4 chambers in the heart. I'm looking at engineer Dave. He's got a big heart, let me tell you. It's not all that's big. Some of his organs are quite eye-watering. Feet. You should see his feet. Size 13 at the very least. This is great news. It's an outbreak of common sense. There are 2 sexes. The idea that these nurses, who, by the way, are not paid enough and work very long hours and are caring for the sick, the idea that they'll put in a 16-hour shift and when they go to change, they have to be confronted by a biological male with the full meat and 2 veg as they have a brief pause in their crazily long shift. It's unforgivable, it's reprehensible, it's mad, and it's wrong. I do hope that Piers Morgan is right when he says that woke is dead. Certainly another nail in the coffin this morning via the very brave and heroic Darlington nurses. The Daily Express, we will fix broken Britain, but not together. Exclusive. Read what Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick have to say about their political split in the Express today. Daily Telegraph, Labour would face wipeout if elections went ahead. Labour majorities on 10 councils will be wiped out if cancelled elections were to go ahead, according to polling for the Telegraph. The figure suggests that Sir Keir Starmer's party would lose half of the seats it was due to defend in May if it had not blocked dozens of elections from happening. This is a national scandal. And don't worry, because Labour can assault democracy all they like. They can make us wait for the vote. But once we get that vote, oh boy, will we use it at the local elections in May, which I suspect will destroy Keir Starmer's tenure in number 10, and then just wait 2 or 3 years' time for that general election. Change is coming, folks. Bring popcorn. And last but not least, in the Daily Telegraph, Badenoch, Britain is not broken. Tory leader fires broadside at Jenrick as she says our best days are ahead. That's the question this morning. Is Britain broken? 0344 499 1000. Coming up, more front pages and my star paper reviewer live in the studio. This is Talk Breakfast.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. this was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy.
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:21. Lovely to have your company. Mark Dolan with you on Talk Breakfast at 9 a.m. Robert Buckland, the former Justice Secretary under the Conservatives, accuses his former friend, former colleague Robert Jenrick of borderline racism. Jenrick was in the Midlands at the end of last year and said, "I didn't see a white face for my whole trip there. It's essentially a slum in certain areas." So is that racist? Well, I'll be tackling that in Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. And at 8:45, live on the show, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Sharon has messaged the show, Britain is totally broken. That's this morning's question, is Britain broken? There's nothing great about this country, nothing whatsoever. She adds that I think Donald Trump is the most amazing human being on this planet. Look what he's done for this world. It is fantastic. Yeah, I just wonder, I know that he's an unconventional politician and an unconventional human being, but I judge people by their actions, not the words. We've got a peace deal in the Middle East. We've got a potential peace deal in Ukraine. No one certainly tried harder to broker peace than Trump. Venezuela is in complete, absolute dreamland in the absence of Maduro. He's the holder of the Nobel Peace Prize, courtesy of the current recipient. The list goes on. Tony Blair being involved with Trump in Gaza can only mean big finance deals for their benefit, says Mick in Wallington. And Dan says, good morning, Mark. If Labour were to change their leader, it can be Mickey Mouse for all I care. But if they did it, whatever. It would be anyone else than a white male, because it's all about diversity these days. Don't forget, Britain is broken, by the way, and we need an election to save it. OK, well, look, I'll get to more of your feedback very shortly. Live in the studio, broadcaster, political commentator, former Conservative government advisor, Charlie Rowley. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Who was the winner from this week's political drama?
Well,
I thought I'd start you with an easy one. Can someone get Charlie a coffee?
Yes. I am not someone that likes to sit on the fence too much, but at the start of the day, obviously you thought it was game, set, match for Kemi. Because put all the names aside, whether you're a big fan of Robert Jenrick, whether you're not a fan of Robert Jenrick or not, anyone who is leading a major political party, like Kemi Badenoch is, the Conservative Party, and you discover that someone in your top team, someone that has been a very good communicator, that's done a lot of broadcast, that lost out to you as the leader of that party, but is not only going to defect from your party, but also going to take down your top team with them, so criticising Mel Stride, criticising Priti Patel, and at a point that is going to be pivotal in the run-up to a set of local elections, you'd get rid of them, you'd show them the door. And she did that. She acted decisively, she acted quickly, and you would have thought, brilliant. But of course, as politics is so volatile these days, and you've got to be able to adapt and move on your feet quickly, Farage quickly made the decision to welcome Rob into the fold, probably saw that Rob has got a lot of talents, as he does, as a communicator, and the press conference that they held at the end of the day, I think demonstrated Rob's abilities, when your back's against the wall, to explain why he's taken the decision that he had and set out the case for reform, inviting others to join him. So a score draw, probably, at the end of the day, but it was great drama.
The million-dollar question is whether Jenrick's hand was forced. Do you think that this defection was always going to happen?
I'm not 100% sure that it would have done, actually. But if you plan...
He was keeping his options open, wasn't he?
I think he was. And look, he might have come to the conclusion early that if the local elections don't go as badly as what he might have thought they would, then there wouldn't be a vacancy to run for the Tory leadership. Obviously, Kemi has brought the Tory party back up in the polls. I think a lot of that is because of her great work. I think a lot of that is because of the Labour party's and the Labour government's own doing, that they're so low in the polls now. So I think he probably weighed up those options. I mean, but I think he probably also factored in, if I do wait, until the local elections, and Kemi does an okay job, or the Tories sort of hold on, and there's no real means or ways or want to sort of move her on, I can't then defect, because that really would look opportunistic. So he's weighed up in his mind, I've either got to go before the 7th of May or stick with it. And so he's obviously decided that I'll go before the 7th of May. I don't think he thought about doing it this week, but it was certainly there an option for him to consider.
Well, this is it. He's an ambitious politician, although, please, I would say, Charlie, spare me the pearl clutching about disloyalty. There aren't too many loyal politicians out there, and they're all ambitious. Everyone in the House of Commons wants to be Prime Minister. Get over it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
More or less.
More or less. And I think we are in such a different time now where the loyalties aren't necessarily to the party. It's about policy issues, I think, and it's about, there isn't this sort of left or rightism anymore that we sort of used to have. It actually is about, what is in front of you and what does the country need? How do you change it? How do you make things better? And I think that's where the debates are often held now. But Rob is obviously very ambitious, but he's obviously got, I think, also a lot to give. And he's obviously decided that the best way that he can sort of give, and what he really thinks is the direction of travel that this country needs to take, is by having Nigel Farage as Prime Minister. So that's why he's jumped across to go and support him.
Is it acceptable for politicians to change their mind and go on a journey?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, some will question the thought process if you immediately sort of have an epiphany in the middle of the night and you wake up thinking, oh, actually, no, I'm going to change my mind and do a complete 180. People might question that as suspicious if you've got something to gain from it. But of course people are able to change their minds. But this is, I think, the problem that we've got with the modern day communications, modern day politics. Things happen so quickly now, so rapidly, that you've got to be able to be, as I said before, light on your feet. You've got to change to the cards that are presented in front of you. That's been the failure, actually, of this government, that they haven't been able to adapt quickly enough, that they've been dragged kicking and screaming to make the U-turns that they've had to make, because they shouldn't have been made in the first place, some of those decisions, like winter fuel allowance, like attacking our farmers, like attacking pubs, business rates, national insurance contributions, the list goes on. So they've had to really change their minds, but through kicking and screaming. But if you can wake up and smell the coffee and think, actually, right, this needs a real overhaul when it comes to dealing with migration, particularly illegal migration. Do you believe the Tories can do it? Well, they're not going to get elected at the next government, at the next general election to form the next government, because of that hangover of failures of the past. So who can do that? And people will think it's Nigel Farage. He's been consistent on that. That's why I'm going to join him. That's the mentality of the defectors, and why people are going to reform. That's why Reform are ahead in the polls. So you can change your mind. I think it's perfectly acceptable. But it's the blend now of people being businesslike and political. So how do you get the job done? Well, we'll put the political differences aside. We'll put all the personal barbs that we've sent across at each other, all of the previous history that we might have tweeted during campaigns, that's all in the past, because the cause is bigger than all of that, and the cause is repairing broken Britain.
Well, that's a great point that you've made there, broken Britain. Daily Telegraph, Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Tories, Britain is not broken. Conservative leader fires broadside at Jenrick as she says our best days are ahead. That's today's question. Is Britain broken? Billy has called. Good morning, Billy.
Good morning, Mark. How are you today?
I'm very well. Lovely to have you on the show. What do you think about this sceptre dial? Is it broken?
Of course, Britain's broken. It's okay for Kemi Badenoch and Keir Starmer and their champagne lifestyle and their big houses, and everywhere they go, they're guided away from the real Britain, shall we say. Britain is on its knees. You can't get a doctor, you can't go to the hospital, you can't drive down the road without smashing the suspension on your car.
Yeah.
You go on, and on.
Well, that's right, and the taxes, of course, are at such a record high, the highest tax burden since the 1950s, Billy.
I can't say too much about taxes. I work in Denmark, so I pay more taxes, but anyway, that's different.
But I suppose the difference is, do you get more for your tax in Denmark?
No, because of the Danish and the UK tax agreement, I pay tax in the UK, then Denmark claims it back from the UK and I end up paying more. It's just a whole mess, but that's a different dilemma.
Do you think, Billy, that when Kemi Badenoch says Britain is not broken, that she's gaslighting the public, given the fact that life in this country is proving to be very difficult?
I don't really know the difference between gaslighting and delusional. They're all delusional in Westminster. They haven't a clue about the real world. The MP made the comment in Birmingham that's getting strung up about the white faces. He's actually talking truth. You walk down any normal street in the UK and you struggle to see a white person. These people, when they go and visit these cities, they're steered away from that. They're steered into the upper class areas. They don't see the real Britain. They don't see the real struggle that people has got to deal with day in and day out.
That's right, ghettoised communities. And as you say, I don't think Kemi Badenoch has to worry too much about a GP appointment, about a school place, likely living in a middle class area. And this is the issue you've got, the political elite out of touch, Charlie, and that's why Nigel Farage has such cut through. And actually maybe the messaging that Britain is broken is not negative for many of our viewers and listeners, it's just the truth.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference that the two parties are currently making. Kemi is obviously trying to make the case that, look, you know, our best days lie ahead, we're not broken, some bits of it are, and those are the big bits, you know, the economy, immigration, crime, they need fixing, but they need careful planning, careful thought through policies in order to fix those challenges. But broadly, we're a resilient country, we're optimistic. She's trying to inject a bit of hope, I think. Whether that hope might be overstated and not quite reading the room is the question that you're asking. Whereas Reform are obviously saying, no, you know, we absolutely need to overhaul everything in the system, from Whitehall to Wolverhampton and places like that, in order to ensure that actually we really make sure that our policing are policing properly, that they're not knocking on your door because of a tweet, or they're not making decisions like banning football fans at the behest of an Islamist mob that seemed to have controlled the West Midlands police there, it seems to me, that they're tackling illegal immigration, that they're getting on top of crime, that they're cutting taxes, actually supporting businesses. So, you know, Britain is fundamentally broken, Reform will say. So it's that difference between saying we are in an absolute hole and this needs a complete overhaul, there's only one party in town that can do that, that's Reform, versus the Conservative approach, which Kemi's trying to say, no, stick with us or come back to us because we've got the solutions to the actual problems. But broadly, you know, the sun still rises, it still sets, we can still get up and go to work. Obviously, you want to have your taxes cut, but things are bad, but, you know, we keep moving forward.
Billy, thank you so much for a fantastic call. Is Britain broken? 0344 499 1000. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:34 Talk Breakfast. Richard Tice joins me at 8:45. Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. Is Britain broken? This from Sean in Bridlington, who says, good morning, Mark. You only have to look at the state of our roads to know Britain is broken. When some third world countries have better roads than us, you know something extraordinary radical is needed to fix the UK. And I shall get to more of your feedback in just a moment on that. Just from Barry, Britain is so broken, there may be no way back to civilization. Leave while you are able. I will tell you that there's a lot of viewers and listeners to this show, Charlie, that told me in recent weeks that if they had the money to leave this country, they'd be gone.
Well, and I sympathise with that hugely, actually. And I was having a conversation with a few people before outside previous weeks. If I was, I mean, I'm 35. I'm 36 this year.
Looking good on it.
Oh,
you look after yourself. You work out. You moisturise.
I try. And if I was 10 years younger, Not that anything is sort of stopping me now, but family commitments and all the rest of it.
Sure.
But if I was 10 years younger, and obviously when you're 25, you still have a bit more, freedom and feel, no real responsibility, I probably would have gone to Dubai to work. I probably would have gone somewhere else. I would have explored another, because you can, and
the
you
United States, perhaps.
The US, exactly. Just because of the tax burden and because of the regulation and because nothing seems to work. Not even the trains, or you can't get a dentist appointment, you can't get a doctor's appointment. Everything takes such a long time, even to fix the smallest, of you're trying to call HMRC. You can't get on the phone to them for love nor money.
Yeah.
It feels like we are smothered in regulation and rules, and then you hear things like, as I just touched on before, the police going to knock on people's doors for tweets rather than actual, shop lifters and criminals that are actually patrolling the streets.
And two-tier policing, which we've seen with the resignation of the head of West Midlands Police, who's been able to resign rather than be fired, even though he essentially covered up information, misinterpreted evidence from Dutch police about the threat of Maccabi fans, misled a House of Commons Select Committee, and essentially in a very politicised way and in a two-tier way protected the British Muslim community in that region rather than protect law and order, which is his job as a copper. So you've got these structural issues, haven't you? I mean, look, I won't talk the country down. I love this country. Look at our viewers and listeners, look at Talk, look at the city that we're in, the capital city, London. Britain is a great country. But I think that it's right to call it broken. My metaphor, Charlie, would be that it's like a car that's got a rattle in the engine, right? There's a knocking sound. So the car still starts and it still drives and it gets you from A to B. But that knocking sound doesn't bode well. And I think that's where we are with the economy, with law and order, with energy policy, is that it's the direction of travel, it's the trajectory. Things are okay now. But what you've got is an ever-increasing tax burden, an ever-increasing debt pile, a diminished military, an unsustainable energy policy, wokery in our public institutions. So it's like, it's not broken right now, but for another metaphor on top of that, it's 5 to midnight and it's nearly broken. And this is the issue, and this is, I think, where people are concerned and why I suspect change is coming, is that people want this addressed. And I think what you have with the political establishment is nothing to see here, status quo. And I think what you get with that is managed decline.
I think that's a perfect analogy, and it's when all of those things add up. So, you might have on top of a rattled engine, you might have a flattening tyre, not necessarily a flat one, and, and then someone comes and knocks off your windscreen and so you've only, or wind mirror, and so you're in this car that is still going, but it's becoming incredibly more reduced in terms of its operation. So people are looking, when there are so many issues, people are looking for an extreme alternative to come in and say, right, we're going to really just remake the car rather than do a patch-up job or just change the tyre. There are so many issues that I think people care about that are going in the wrong direction, and that's why, as your listeners and viewers will say, they're crying out for a change, and wherever that change comes from, but at the minute it seems to be Nigel Farage and the Reform Party leading that charge.
Most definitely. I mean, what I would do is strip out divisive left-wing ideology from our public institutions, examples of which would be, Home Office seminars about white privilege, which is a deeply racist and misguided idea, highly contested. The idea in the NHS that there aren't pregnant women, but just birthing humans who chest feed on a regular basis. And of course, we've seen the wonderful verdicts in regard to the Darlington nurses who are able now to have a female-only space for changing in their professional setting, and that is obviously a step in the right direction. I think the economy is a big one, don't you? I think that it all starts with the economy, because I just think it's national income is what will give any future administration the firepower to save Britain if it is broken.
Yeah, exactly. A economy firing on all cylinders, one that actually you see that growth when money can actually go into
2, 3, 4% growth.
Yeah,
ought to be the goal.
Totally, yeah, not the measly sort of 0.1%, 0.3% for the month of November, which will have to be revised as part of the quarterly return, which I imagine we might actually see downgraded.
Wow.
When those figures come out in a couple of months' time. Or at the end of February. So people want to see that growth in the economy. They want to see the pound in their pocket actually felt. So to help with the day-to-day issues like food shopping, paying your bills, childcare, being able to pay your energy bill, an energy bill that should be coming down, that we were promised would come down, has gone up £150 because of some of the policies of net zero and Ed Miliband. So people are rightly angered, and when they then see this mass migration issue, when they see taxpayers' money, taxpayers who are working hard, who will be up to date, people who've got Saturdays jobs to fill.
Yeah.
They are the ones that are going to be having to tax and pay for hotel accommodation, for other people's doctors and dentist appointments, people who are appealing their judgment when they should be deported, when they don't have a claim or a case to be in the UK, where judges have decided that, but they have a right to appeal. More money going to the judicial system when we know that the outcome of that deportation result will be to get out of the country. All of that money wasted, which could be going on hard-working Brits. That's when people find and really take issue with the injustices and the two-tier Britain that we find ourselves in.
Well, I just was reading yesterday that gas prices in the United States are now at the level that they were at in 2011. And this is why Donald Trump was elected. He was going to sort of support working class America, blue-collar Americans. There's no tax on tips. There are actually tax cuts for every sector of the economy, every sector of society, including the poor. And I think this is tying in with broken Britain. The two worst things, in my humble opinion, that affect those at the bottom end of the economic ladder are inflation, because it's a tax on everyone, least affordable by the poor, and unemployment. And both of those things have been turbocharged by the policies of this government.
Totally. And
I mean, that should be the starting point for a progressive left-wing government. Should be, we're going to make sure there's no inflation, because that's a tax on the poor, and we're going to make sure that there's employment, not unemployment. But we've gone the other way.
Yeah, exactly. And, what's the best way to make sure that someone's employed? It's through business. Government doesn't create jobs. Businesses create jobs.
And what is the best way out of poverty? Work.
Exactly. Work pays. Make work pay. And the only way that you can give that opportunity to a young person, for example, or someone at the other end of the spectrum who might want to get back into work, that might want to work a few more hours if they're of an older age, is not by increasing national insurance contribution, is not putting the pressure on businesses to pay more or have more of their outgoings when they could be recruiting more people, growing their own business, employing even more people, and we know that's how the ecosystem works.
100 million%. Guy in Oxford, Mark, my dear old thing, there isn't enough double-sided sticky tape in the Blue Peter studio to fix the UK at the moment. Old mate from West Midlands Police could be the poster boy for a society in obvious moral decline. As for Jenrick, how can you be racist for saying what you saw? Jenrick at the end of November of last year said he was in the Midlands, it was like a slum, parts of it, and that he hadn't seen a white face for the entirety of his trip. He said, how can you be racist for saying what you saw? The area he was in had a 90% non-white demographic. It's entirely plausible, or at the very least a minor embellishment. Absolute nonsense. If we can't use a dictionary any longer, perhaps the country is in a worse state than I thought. This from Linda, who says, good morning, Mark. Linda in Worcester here. The Tories are miffed because Jenrick said the quiet part out loud and they don't like it. We already knew the Tories weren't sorry for what they did, and they wouldn't change as they don't see anything that they did wrong. If the Tories had won the general election in 2024, the UK would still pretty much look as it does now under Labour. Left-wing, woke, PC, etc. So how do you see this battle for the soul of British conservatism playing out? You've got Reform UK, who are enjoying these conservative defections, but then you've also got a slightly emboldened leader of the opposition in Kemi Badenoch, who's performing well at Prime Minister's questions and who handled this most recent crisis well. So how does it play out?
Well, if I knew that, then I'd tell you.
I don't think that the idea of the Conservatives in terminal decline quite stands up now, I suspect. I think that old Nigel's got still got a fight on his hands if he's going to destroy the Tories.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and nothing is forever. Politics, as we know, is always cyclical. Everything runs in cycles. Just depends how quickly those cycles come around.
Yeah.
And it's come around very quickly for Labour to get into power when, Keir Starmer took over as the leader of the Labour Party. He only had 5 years in opposition. But obviously because of the demise of the Tories, I think he was victorious in that sense.
Yeah.
Now Labour are doing so badly, people are looking for any alternative, and they've obviously started to look at Nigel. But the more that the Reform Party continue to get ahead in the polls, the more scrutiny that comes with, including some of the decisions of who these defectors are. Are they right for reform? Are they not? How does that sit with the membership? But I think these are all sideshow sort of questions, because I think ultimately for the broader public, anybody going to reform I think is probably a good headline, because it shows that reforms still have momentum. But you're right, when it comes to actual policy issues and people looking for change, they will be looking at Kemi, who seems to be more emboldened. She is taking on Sir Keir Starmer at the dispatch box. She's beating him by a considerable margin, because she's talking tough, she knows what she stands for, she knows what she believes in, and she's up against the Prime Minister that doesn't really know what the weather's doing and what way he's going to blow in the wind that morning.
With unfiltered conservatism on the table being offered by Reform UK, a definitively, provably right-wing administration to elect, who are the people on the right that would choose the Tories instead?
Well, a brilliant question, and I'm not entirely sure I would know. I think people are, if they're instinctively
the Conservative
frustrated.
voters that don't like reform, who are they? And what motivates them?
Well, I think they will be people who have voted Conservative for a very, very long time and will just feel loyal to the party. But they may continue to back Kemi. Look, I think the people who talk about a pact with the right, Reform and the Tory party doing a pact, of course the party leaders aren't going to talk that up with any great fanfare at the minute.
Yeah.
But I do think there is a case to, you've got to look at that because, there is a role for the state to intervene, which reformers have highlighted in certain areas, whether it's Scunthorpe Steelworks, and Kemi will want to intervene only when it's necessary. So there is that bit of intervention when it's needed, but ultimately they both believe in cutting tax, cutting bureaucracy, cutting welfare, absolutely cutting crime, getting the economy firing on all cylinders, dealing with immigration and illegal immigration. So there is a lot of crossover there, which is why it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody when you see more Tories go over to Reform and Reform saying yes to Tories.
I think what your very articulate answer has demonstrated is there isn't too much between them actually overall. It's actually a bit of an Aldi-Lidl situation. And the question you've got is, if you split that market, does it help Labour? Is Britain broken? Barry's in Norwich. Good morning, Barry. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning. How are you? Good morning, Charlie.
Very well. Top of the morning. What do you think? Is Britain broken?
Yeah, I think Britain is completely shattered, to be frank. And I think it has been since Margaret Thatcher. Since then, we've had weak leader after weak leader after weak leader. And, wages have gone down. When I left school, right, in 87, you went on a youth training scheme and then you went out to work. No one claimed benefits when they were in work. A lot of people now have to claim benefits when they're in work to top up their work, which I find absolutely just amazing. Yeah, right? And the why Britain is broken is because you've got low wages, stagnant growth, the benefits bill going up and up and up because of people who are coming into the country illegally, people who are coming into the country legally, overstaying, people who are claiming sickness benefit that shouldn't be claiming sickness benefit, and people who are sitting on their backsides, it shouldn't be sitting on their backsides. And when governments turn around and say, like Boris Johnson says, oh, what a level up. Level up what? What do you want to level up? Do you want to level me up? Do you want to level me up to you, Boris? Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Governments aren't there for their people. They are there for themselves. And this is why I get really worried about Nigel Farage just recently bringing in Nadine Sawari and the other bloke you brought in the other day, Robert Jenrick. It's just, I was a Reform voter up till I seen Nadine Sawari come in, so I thought, why are you bringing in a man who has been investigated for tax fraud, got sacked from the job? You know what I mean? Yeah, right. What other job would you go to for a job interview and say, well, what was you doing in your last job? Well, I got sacked for tax fraud. Yeah, right. The vaccine, I pushed vaccines on people. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm thinking to myself, Reform the reason why I voted Reform is because they were anti-establishment. I thought, you know, they're going to do this. They're going to, do you know what I mean? Yeah. But now I think they're turning into the establishment.
And therefore, what you're worried about is you're going to have sort of continuity Tories, but with a turquoise badge.
I mean, yeah, you got Jenrick, he was a Remainer, staunch Remainer, yeah, right? He was called Farage all kinds of names, and Farage have called him all kinds of names, and now they're sitting on a table together like they're best of friends.
Yeah.
That don't work for me. I couldn't sit next to someone that I'd spoken to like that, and they'd spoken to me like that, and then pretend to be friends. Yeah, right? You know, Jenrick is up to one thing, and that's his self. And I think that he is going to come in there and there's going to be chaos because you've got Farage, Jenrick, Tice, all them big egos in there now. Yeah, right. And I think the worst thing Nigel Farage done was turning Reform into a retirement home for failed Tories. And that's what it's turning into. Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's turning into the Boris Johnson ex-cabinet. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, right. Yeah, they've failed already. Do you know what I mean? I don't want people coming into government that I've seen already fail. I want new people. Yeah, right, with a new party.
Not tainted by the legacy of the Tories who have destroyed the country.
Yeah, of course. I don't want that. And we've got these idiots now destroying it even further. Yeah. And I you know, if I was 30 years younger, mate, I'd be on the plane and I'd be off.
Yeah.
I can't go, but I would be. And I think a lot of people have left this country, young people, entrepreneurs,
yes,
brainy people, do you know what I mean? People with money, they've left, they've gone. And I think it's really sad the way this country's gone down the pan in the last 30-odd years. Really, really sad. And yeah, that's really all I've got to say.
Barry, an incredible call. You covered so much material there, and I agree with every syllable of it. You are right. The country hasn't been right since 1990. Mrs. Thatcher left office because we had true unbridled conservatism at that point. We've chipped away at it ever since. And her legacy has been eroded, not just by Labour and particularly Tony Blair, but by consecutive Tory leaders as well. Barry, really enjoyed your company. Call me again soon. Have an excellent Saturday. 0344 499 1000. Is Britain broken? This is Talk Breakfast.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. this was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy.
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:55 Talk Breakfast. Richard Tice live on the show at 8:45. Dolan's dispatch at 9. It's the Robert Buckland race row in regard to Robert Jenrick. But is Britain broken is today's question. This is a voice note from Sean.
Morning, Mark. Sean from Grimsby here. You know, how can Kemi Badenoch sit there and say our best days are ahead when we're all skint? Energy bills are sky high still. It's not going to change anytime soon. Immigration's not going to change anytime soon. This is just talking absolute great show, mate.
Thank you. Listen, Sean, not mincing his words, and rightly so. This is another voice note from Pete.
The biggest problem we have with this government is a Prime Minister and a front bench that change their minds constantly. But what he doesn't change his mind on is the things that are important to the British people. The things we need to have to keep us going and keep us at a decent standard of living. Keeps changing his mind on the things that affect us and harm us. Weird government we have here. Needs to go. More U-turns than a ram in a field full of sheep in mating season. They need to go. General election now.
Very well put. Thank you for that excellent metaphor, Pete, and I appreciate the sentiment of your message. Dean in previously Salford. Good morning, Mark. Britain is broken. I decided to leave my hometown of Manchester a few years back for country life. Why? Because our beautiful suburb was becoming a prime crime hellhole. Today I'm going back for the Manchester Derby. I won't be wearing my watch as I have to walk through Piccadilly crack gardens, and the place is like a foreign country. It's not broken, it is kaput. Dean, formerly of Salford. So what do you make of the previous call, Charlie, and the concerns about our viewers and listeners that actually Kemi's wide of the mark here, the country is broken?
Well, I think there's obviously a lot that needs to be fixed, so it's just depending on whether you think it is completely broken or whether there just are a lot of bits that are broken that can be patched up and or more than patched up. But obviously, you know, do we have any hope? Is there any optimism for the future? I think there is. I do agree with you. I think, you know, our best days do still lie ahead and we can get over the problems, but they do need an awful lot of work. You know, there's no quick fixes here. This does need huge reforms. And so when you have people like Barry call up to say, look, not since Margaret Thatcher have we had a leader that can actually grip some of these problems, you know, she made huge changes in the country, totally deregulated business.
It was a political and economic revolution, wasn't it?
Totally, totally. And made some tough decisions that did impact on communities like the mining community, but that was arguably, obviously, you know, coming to an end. We needed to reindustrialise, we needed to get on the front foot of technology.
Wasn't it?
Tough love, but, you know, she delivered it and she stuck with it, and no Prime Minister since has gone back on any of those things.
They haven't, and things got worse before they got better.
Exactly, exactly. And so, you know, people are looking for that kind of figure again, and they see that, I think, in Nigel, certainly compared to this Prime Minister, and compared to other, well, unfortunately for Kemi, you know, she's leading a party on the back of its worst defeat since, you know, at the last election. So she's going to struggle to try and cut through.
Well, I'm so delighted to have Charlie Rowley with me in the studio. He's going to stick around until after 7 o'clock because we've got many more front pages to get through. Don't forget Richard Tice live on the show at 8:45, Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. You've got one Tory calling another ex-Tory a borderline racist. I'll be handling that. Plus, folks, is Britain broken? That is today's question. Keep it talk.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
.703. We've been on air an hour. Has anyone defected to Reform UK since 6 a.m? Producer Ted, he's just had a picture with Richard Tice. No, he's politically neutral. Top of the morning, it is 3 minutes past 7. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. And the fallout continues following the defection of former Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick to Reform UK. It's the big story of the week, of the month, of the year, with a war of words breaking out between the Conservatives and Nigel Farage's insurgent party. So where does this leave the political right as the Tories brand Reform a bunch of liars? The gloves most certainly are off. But who wins this battle for the soul of British conservatism and, more importantly, the battle for votes at the next general election? Is the only real winner Sir Keir Starmer as the political right fight like rats in a sack? And this morning in the Daily Telegraph, Kemi Badenoch insists that Britain is not broken, that our best days lie ahead. So that's today's question at 4 minutes past 7 on a Saturday morning. Is Britain broken? You tell me, because you live in the real world. Unlike the media, corporate and political elite, you actually have to walk down the street, try and get a bus or a train, and hopefully it'll be on time. Try not to get mugged for your watch or your mobile phone. You are the one struggling to get a GP appointment, a dentist appointment, a school place for your kid. You're the one that has to pay £4.50 for a small pot of yoghurt that used to be £2 5 years ago because of inflation. So I want to know from you, you're the ones that decide, not the political elite. You tell me, is Britain broken? 03444991000, text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. And I will say that so much happens here on Talk. We're the home of free speech, home of common sense, and we are a platform for all opinions. And we had something of a viral moment on the show yesterday. We had a good friend of mine as a guest on the programme, Sir Robert Buckland, former Conservative Lord Chancellor and Justice Secretary, who had some very harsh words about his former friend and former colleague Robert Jenrick following his decision to move over to Reform UK. Here's what he said on the show. The background is that Robert Jenrick, in November of last year, visited the Midlands, which of course is where he's from, and that's where he's got his constituency of Newark. And he said that there were certain parts of the Midlands on his trip there in October that were like a slum, that were not like modern Britain, and he said that whilst he was there, he didn't see a white face. Robert Buckland, not happy with those remarks. Take a listen.
I'm sad that a former colleague, close colleague of mine, Robert, we were in cabinet together, in government together for a long time, has now transmogrified from a Conservative into some sort of pound shop Enoch Powell. It really is an edifying spectacle.
Wow, the gloves are off. Pound shop Enoch Powell. Now, Enoch Powell is a former Conservative politician who was accused of racism. Listen, there you go. Powerful words. So I want your reaction to that. It's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. Is it racist to point out that in certain parts of the country you don't see a white face? I don't know. So you tell me at 7 minutes past 7. Charlie Rowley is a former Conservative government advisor, broadcaster and journalist. Lovely to see you, Charlie.
Good morning. Lovely to see you.
Looking very chipper. We need to get you another coffee because it is a breakfast show. I want to ask you about this. It's very politically sensitive, this conversation around skin colour and race and the makeup of our communities. Do you think that Robert Buckland crossed the line there with the Enoch Powell label?
I think on balance, yes. It's not a phrase I would have used. It's not a comparison I would have reached for if I was trying to articulate my displeasure at what Robert Jenrick had said. But I think Robert Jenrick was making a point. He was making an observation about a particular part of the country where we've seen a lot of protests take place, where there might be very pro-Palestinian protests, where we've seen the police make decisions that have favoured a Muslim community versus a Jewish community, which has resulted in the chief constable having to retire early, in inverted commas, as opposed to be sacked or resign. So there's clearly an issue in a particular part of the country, I think, and many other parts of the country. And Robert Jenrick was making a point about his observations there. I think reaching for the Enoch Powell borderline racism accusation, I think, was slightly too much for me. But this highlights the problem within the Conservative Party, funny enough, because where Robert Jenrick has made a decision, whether it's quite forced or not, it wasn't his timing, but he's chosen to back reform, he's chosen to back Nigel Farage to get on top of some of these issues that he really cares about. The problem with the Conservative Party, I'm afraid, with people like Robert Buckland, who I like and I'm a huge fan of and a friend of, I think would be someone, I think it would be fair to say in the Conservative Party, that wouldn't necessarily agree with leaving the ECHR. So the Tory Party, when it's making these decisions about leaving the ECHR, which it has decided to do under Kemi, at the next election, every candidate's going to have to sign up to that. There are still a lot of people in the Conservative Party, as Robert Jenrick had highlighted yesterday and a couple of days ago, that still don't support that. So the Conservative Party does still have to stay together, but I think this conversation that you brilliantly highlighted yesterday with Robert still highlights the issues of left-wing conservatism versus right-wing conservatism within the Conservative Party. So there is a problem of whether people like to frame it as a Conservative Party full of Conservatives or Reformists and Lib Dems. But it's a broad church, the Conservative Party, and it's balancing all of those voices. But I wouldn't have gone as far as Robert did.
Well, I think the issue you've got is labelling somebody racist for discussing the makeup of a community is really the modus operandi of the woke left. Because, as you know, a lot of people on the left will just accuse anyone and anything being racist and anyone being racist. It's unfortunate, is it not, to see a Conservative politician play that card, which I think is designed to shut down debate and to reflect on, how the country is changing.
I think that's absolutely right. Because you look, for too long, we have all been told that basically, if you talk about immigration, you are far right, you are racist. If you talk about the demographic changes, if you talk about or criticise other cultures or religions, then you are far right, you're a racist.
And that may soon be illegal under Islamophobia plans.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, we wouldn't be able to challenge the idea necessarily, or it would silence us even more if we wanted to talk or highlight about particular communities where there might be a rape gang scandal going on, where we're talking about particular communities and cultures and religions that still force women to wear particular clothing that they might not want to, where we're talking about still forced or arranged marriages, something that is not a Western ideal, something that shouldn't be. I think it certainly isn't British. When we're talking about Sharia law taking place in prisons, where prisoners are basically paying off or buying off prison officers in order to have their say running the show.
First cousin marriage, the list goes on.
Exactly. So all of these things we have felt that we've not been able to talk about through fear of being accused of being a racist. So when you do have someone highlight that or use that accusation against another Conservative, former Conservative, or Conservative principled, now Reform supporter Robert Jenrick, I think you're absolutely right. That's disappointing.
But was Robert Jenrick being cynical? Was he stirring the pot with that remark? He knew it would make headlines.
He articulated it in a way which generated conversation, but I think it was a genuine observation. I think, look, Birmingham is a very diverse place. It is,
Is not seeing a white face a problem?
It's not a problem. No, of course it's not, because there are many people who are British who obviously, are, black, who are Pakistani, of a particularly different religion, race. You can absolutely be British. But I think the problem is it's not about skin colour, but it is about Western ideals and values. You can be, absolutely, you can be whatever colour skin, but if you are signed up to the way of British life, law, and tolerance, the problem that we have in this country is that we became too tolerant of intolerance, of different cultures and values that were not in line with British culture, that were simply not British values. So that is the problem. It doesn't matter, your background, but if you are someone who's, you could be a white supremacist, extremist.
Yeah, of course.
That is equally as unacceptable as someone that might be a different skin colour to me that has Islamical radicalism.
Well, that's right. And I think that when he made those remarks about not seeing a white face, I think that he's entitled to spark a debate about a rapidly changing country and society that nobody voted for. And that I'm actually not sure that many ethnic Brits are delighted to have enormous swathes of the country where you don't see a white face either. Because actually the principle of Britain is it is a diverse country. If you don't see a white face, actually it's not diverse anymore, is it?
Exactly.
And
yes.
it just reflects, a national conversation that we need to have about mass large-scale immigration, and I think that's why it was helpful. But what do you think about this? Steve is in Leeds. Now, Steve, I want to get to your point about if Britain's broken in just a moment, but do you mind picking up on that conversation? Do you think it's racist, Steve, to say that you've been to a part of Birmingham, you didn't see a white face for your visit there? What do you make of that?
Well, I've been to that part of Birmingham, so I've covered most of the country.
Right.
And Richard Jenrick's right in the sense that it's an enclave of the Muslim community. Yeah, they've all gone there, they all speak the same language. If you go there, most of them can't speak English properly, and that sounds racist, but it's true because I've dealt with them. But what it is an enclave of a cultural value, is what he's saying. It's not about the colour of somebody's skin, but when you go to Handsworth in Birmingham, what you feel like you've walked into is New Delhi.
Yeah.
Most of the people dress in a certain way, they speak in a certain way, the women walk around in the burqas and everything else. The attitude of the men that you speak there is very much a Muslim attitude from countries like India and Pakistan towards women, gays and everything else. And that's the problem. It's the cultural influx of different values that are diametrically opposed to ours. Let's remember, Mark, this country used to have being gay illegal. This country used to, when women got raped, ask them about the way they dressed.
Yeah.
Was it your fault? Now, this is back in my lifetime. I was born in the 60s. Yeah, I remember court cases where it was, well, love, if you hadn't dressed like that, it's your fault. This country's evolved beyond those beliefs and those ideas, and unfortunately, there were people coming into this country from other parts of the world who still hold those ideals dear. You've got the Pakistani rape gangs because they view young white girls as trash, where they wouldn't assault young Muslim girls.
Correct.
It's a cultural thing. We've now got laws about FGM. We never had that. Honour killing. We never had that. We've imported these crimes into our country, and instead of educating people to not have those beliefs, all we've done is said, we'll make it illegal. Well, why don't we educate them that that's not what we believe in this country? And this is the point I was making about education. We don't educate our own people in our own beliefs. We've got generations now of children in school who are taught it's okay not to win. It's okay to have a day off because of snow. There's no resilience in the future population against the hardships of life. And unless you have that, you're never going to rebuild the country. You can have all the ideas you want, but it's the last 3 generations of children that are going to have to rebuild this country. And when they're not taught the values of our country, they're not taught that Britain is a great place and a great history, they're taught the opposite. When they're taught it's okay to have a day off school because it's a bit too windy or you might slip over.
Yeah.
When I was young at school, and I'm sure I'm speaking for a lot of people, it didn't matter that there were benefits available. I was taught you didn't claim unless you had to. You didn't go to the doctors unless you had to. You went to work if you got a sniffle. So the institutions weren't overloaded with people going to emergency wards because they got an ingrown toenail. People didn't have time off work because they felt a little bit anxious. We were taught, get yourself together, get out there and graft. And generation after generation of children are now taught, actually, claim. You don't need to graft, you can claim. Claim for this, take a day off work, work from home. There's no resilience in the future population. And the ones that are resilient are all buggering off to Dubai and places like that. And we're left with a population of young people, and the statistics are there, Mark, to show it, that would rather spend a life on benefits than go out and graft. You can't make people have that attitude to graft. But it's built into you, it's taught to you as children, it's built into you by your parents. Get off your ass and get a job and do some work, and you'll live better for it. And we've got a generation now of children coming through as young adults who think, I can't go out to work. I might get stressed on the way to work. My phone might fail. They need to start with the education of children first. I've said this before. Who was it that said, give me a child until they're 5 and I'll give you the man?
Wow.
And what we're doing is we're giving the country children who see this country as a negative because they're taught that in school. Britain's horrible, you've got white privilege.
Yeah.
And then they come out of school and they don't want to work and they'll go, well, why is that? That's shocking. Well, we taught them that. We taught them not to respect the country. That's why they don't want to join the army. Why would they join an army when they've been told all their life that the country's horrible, the history's horrible? So when it comes to defending...
Oh, and don't forget and also, Steve, what's being taught to young boys in the classroom, that they're toxic, that they're bad, that you know, that TV show Adolescence that demonises, you know, the young white male character, because apparently they're responsible for all the terrorism in our country.
Yeah, it's like shoplifting, Mark, right? When I was young, we had kids. Most shops didn't have tags on things when I was a kid, but we never would have thought of nicking a penny sweet from a shop.
Yeah.
Because we've been taught that the law is the law. We've now got generations of kids who think it's okay to walk into a shop and scoop up £250 worth of gear and walk out.
Yeah.
You know, people make countries, Mark, not governments. A country is a reflection of its people and their values, yeah? And you get the government you deserve. And the way we're going to end up with a third world country because we'll have third world attitudes towards government. It's all about what we can take from it rather than what we can give to it. And that's a big task for Nigel Farage, is how do you change the education, start there. And it'll take 30 years, again, to change the attitude of the people of the country back to where we were, which is work hard, pay in, take out as little as you need, only when you need to, yeah? Respect others, respect the law. Those are all values that are ingrained when you're children. You can't pick them up when you're 20 and 30 if you've not got them already.
Steve, an incredibly powerful call. I'm so grateful that you've shared your wisdom with us. I 100% agree with you. And the message from Steve, I think, is very clear, Charlie, which is that we've got to reassert British values, British traditions, the work ethic, resilience. Life is difficult. You must strive. You must put in more than you take out. You've got sniffle, you go to work, you put a shift in. And it all starts in the classroom.
Absolutely. I thought that was a brilliant call. And Steve has basically highlighted in probably every area why people think, in answer to your question today, Britain is broken. And it's been for far too long that people don't have that resilience, where we're at school, we've got it totally wrong, we've gone the other way. Whether it's about our armed forces that have been depleted, whether it's about not understanding, or, you know, it's that age-old phrase, what can you do for your country rather than what it can do for you? You know, don't be a taker. And all of the things that he talked about, absolutely spot on. I couldn't agree with him more. And I think he's summed up perfectly what a lot of people up and down this country are thinking, which is why people are looking for seismic change, and that seismic change at the moment doesn't feel as though it's coming from the two major parties.
Well, this is it. And we live in a multi-ethnic society, and we've just had a British Asian Prime Minister in Rishi Sunak, who, in my humble opinion, I know he wasn't perfect, a lot better than the current incumbent. And the public, you know, had no issue with that. It wasn't really a story, was it? That he might have been mentioned just at the beginning, but it wasn't. He wasn't like Rachel from Accounts, you know, first woman chancellor. It went in a blink of an eye. Rishi Sunak led the country. So we have a multi-ethnic society, but what we're being told, you know, is diversity is our strength. And I think that what I would say is that most people are comfortable with a multi-ethnic society. That's not going to change anytime soon. But this notion of diversity is our strength has predominated over the asserting of British values and of the attitudes that made this country very successful.
Yes, that's absolutely right. I think, look, you know, a multi-ethnic society is one thing and absolutely fine, you know, because we're not going to change that, but also that can play to your strengths by learning from other people.
Sure.
But a multicultural society where cultures come up against each other and clash in a lot of the ways in which Steve was talking about, through things like, you know, the idea of FGM, the idea of, you know, Sharia law, you know, trumping UK law. No, we are one people in this country. You either abide by our laws or you don't.
But you wouldn't know that we were one people if you sat in a classroom or in a university lecture hall.
No.
In 2026.
Exactly. You're absolutely right, you know, and where even universities shut down debate, where we wouldn't even be allowed to have the conversations that we are luckily now able to have, certainly have been able to have on this station, but you wouldn't be able to have in a lecture hall because somebody might get upset, or that might be deemed offensive, or some snowflake somewhere would take issue, or because, you know, we need to protect each other, we need to wrap each other up in cotton wool. No, we need to learn from each other by testing our views and scrutinising each other's opinions and, you know, challenging each other. You know, it is okay to have a different opinion to someone, but as long as it's rigorous and thought out, and you can have the ability to change your mind, as Robert Jemrick has obviously done in the last few months. But that's what life is about. That's what makes us stronger, not battening down the hatches, not accusing somebody of being racist because they have an issue with a particular community, or where there isn't that flourishing or opportunity or innovation or growth because of diversity. If that isn't there, then of course we should call it out.
Fascinating. We've really drilled down into it. We love having you on the show, Charlie, and I hope sincerely that you will return and that we'll have many on-air adventures in 2026.
I hope so. Look forward to them.
Good luck finishing your flat in Pimlico.
Thank you very much.
You've got to get the old grouting going on with the bathroom.
Yes, I have sanded, I have ripped off wallpaper, I have filled holes, I've done as much as I possibly can.
You're putting a bidet in there? You strike me as the type.
Yeah.
You're a bidet type.
It's all coming together. And you must come over.
Well, I'll be there. I'll be there to christen the bidet.
Yeah.
We, as I say, really enjoyed your company. Thanks for a brilliant contribution. Charlie Rowley, former Conservative Government Advisor, broadcaster, regular, of course, on Talk. Is Britain broken? We'll get the views of one of my favourite comedians next.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
John says, I'm living in Spain now in relation to Is Britain Broken? I got out 10 years ago. It was broken then. Name me one thing in the public sector that actually works. You can't. And that proves my point. Hi, says Colin. Britain is totally broken. We're being taken over by this radical left-wing government who are encouraging these Islamist groups getting a foothold in our society. You can trace this all back to Tony Blair. Then the Conservatives followed it on. The only way out of this is a reform government led by reformers, not exiled jump ship Conservatives coming into the Reform Party. Because let's face it, the Conservative Party is dead in the water and slowly sinking into the abyss. Beautifully put. Thank you. Very poetic this morning, Colin, at 28 minutes past 7. So much to get through, so many big stories. What about this absolute shocker? And it is the police chief in the West Midlands responsible for the complete debacle in regard to Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, who's been able to retire rather than be fired by his bosses and therefore face the consequences of his actions. Let's get reaction now from broadcaster and comedian Paul Cox. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Mark. So good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm very well, and lovely that you're joining us from your home studio, which looks, I will say, very high spec indeed. Let's have a look at this story. The Chief Constable of West Midlands Police has retired after the Home Secretary withdrew confidence in his leadership over the handling of a ban on Israeli football supporters attending a match in Birmingham. Craig Guilford stepped down days after intense scrutiny following the Home Secretary's concerns. This guy seems to have walked away scot-free, and you know, he's essentially, it's been quite shocking, the whole handling of this story, hasn't it?
Oh, it's been incredibly shocking. I mean, I don't want to disrespect our audience, but anyone called Craig shouldn't be in charge of anything. I've never met a good Craig.
It screams wrong, and it's the ultimate red flag, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sorry for all the Craig listeners out there. I'm sure you're lovely, but I can't wait to make a mistake so big that I get retired. This is unbelievable, really, isn't it? I mean, what's happened here is he's quite obviously, at best, obfuscated any of the truth in order to ban the Israeli Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from Aston Villa because it was the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Because he is managing, or was managing, policing an area of Birmingham that is 90% Muslim. Now, he took a decision there that was basically against all principles of policing, in my opinion. He could have easily then just gone, look, the problem isn't the Israeli fans. The problem is our local community. However, we might stop the Israeli fans from coming because it's easier to police that. And that would have been a more open and, I would say, adult discussion. In taking evidence that wasn't evidence from Amsterdam, making stuff up or avoiding the truth in order to protect the group of people that were likely to cause the crime is anti-police as far as I'm concerned. It's astonishing that he's been allowed to retire. I mean, I'm not surprised. This sort of thing has happened over the years many times before. But given where we are in this kind of environment of truth that only exists if it's convenient, we ought to really be making sure that the police are held accountable. This guy, quite obviously, got something incredibly wrong. And he is at the top of policing in that area, and that area is never going to improve, and those problems are never going to go away if they don't tackle them head on. It was so disingenuous.
Well, it most certainly was, and the independent MP responsible for that area has said that he's been thrown under the bus. So they really are circling the wagons, and I'm not sure much will be learnt from this, Paul.
No, I don't think anything's going to be learned from this. I mean, obviously he goes off with his retirement. And I'm sure maybe Craig Guilford had an astounding career up until this point. But I personally can't believe that, because if you get to the top of your game towards the end of your career and you're willing to make decisions like that, what it asks of him, from my perspective, is did he make these type of decisions, bad decisions previously? And if so,
yeah,
who were the victims of that? Are there people in prison now that shouldn't be in prison now? Because there was no real evidence that those Israeli fans were going to cause a problem. They harked back to an event that took place in Amsterdam at a Champions League game previously in 2025, and it was actually the local Muslim community that were chasing the Israelis around. One guy got chased into the canal and was only allowed out if he promised to say free Palestine. These are terrible attacks on the Israeli people, and it seems to be very convenient in the wider public discourse that Jewish people are able to be the victims. And I would say alongside white people as well, Mark. I don't want to get all ethno-nat on this because that's not where I sit in a political debate. But it does appear that Jewish people and white people are fair game in the way that other people aren't.
I tend to agree with you. Women as well. We've seen that on pro-trans marches. It's crazy what's happening culturally in the country, and it's a deep concern. Now, this is a guy, by the way, that provably misled the House of Commons in relation to the use of AI software. Why AI is involved in the assessment of the police in relation to security is anyone's guess. And also cooking up evidence and misinterpreting evidence and data from the Dutch authorities about these Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. Dutch police have said, well, we sent over some intelligence, but it was misappropriated and essentially sort of sold in a very different way by UK cops. They weren't happy either.
No. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you think that they would maybe protect each other here with their backs against the wall, but they just weren't willing to, because they are policing without favour over there, without fear or favour, in the way that we would hope our police were too. I mean, it's astonishing, really. I think there's so many events that have gone on in the last 12 to 18 months, particularly, coincidentally, under this particular Labour government, under Keir Starmer's leadership, which are astonishing when we look back. We have literally caged Jewish fans outside the outside the Aston Villa ground, and said that they couldn't come in, made them look as if that they were the perpetrators of any crime that was likely to happen, when the people that were stood outside those cages, shouting at them, calling them baby killers, etc., were the people that the evidence suggested would be the criminals in this case. Look, I don't think we should just sit back and accept this sort of stuff. I think that we should make it very transparent. Someone like Craig Guilford should be apologising, not just apologising because he's tanked his career at the end of it, but apologising to the Jewish people of Birmingham, apologising to the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, and apologising to the rest of the country for stoking this discourse that somehow, ever since October the 7th, 2023, Jewish people are the problem. And it's not true. It's simply not true. And it's there in plain sight, and this sort of thing just makes it incredibly worse.
It really, really does. Two-tier policing alive and well in this country. Quite shocking. Can I ask you about the defection of Robert Jenrick to Reform UK? Where do you stand on politicians changing their mind and going on a journey? Do they need to be ideologically consistent, or can you change your political outlook in the course of a career?
So I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. It's a really good question, Mark. And I would say, not question mark, question, comma, mark.
Punctuation
but, you know, yeah, it's all very important. Look, I like conviction politicians. Now, I don't always agree with conviction politicians. Donald Trump's a conviction politician. Arguably, Jeremy Corbyn is a conviction politician. You know what they both stand for, and I use those two because they stand out quite clearly. Robert Jenrick, for me, was somebody, particularly during the Tory leadership debate against Kemi Badenoch, I was always quite suspicious of, on the basis that just weeks, months previously, he seemed quite a liberal Tory wet, from my perspective.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he became this kind of hard right, we must leave the ECHR sort of politician, and I was a bit suspicious of that. Now, he has stuck to his guns. And what I would say is, in this time where the choice used to be the Labour Party and the Tories, you can't be a conviction politician in the Labour Party. Look at Keir Starmer. No idea what he stands for. No idea who's in charge of Keir Starmer. And look at the Tories, 14 years of a really bad government, and Kemi Badenoch's doing the best job she possibly can, but you can't be a conviction politician. As it's been pointed out this week, half of the cabinet don't want to leave the ECHR in the Conservative government, in the Conservative opposition party. So I'm not sure how anybody can, if you're of Robert Jenrick's bent and you are to the right of where Keir Starmer is, and you want to see actual change in this country, where he can go. So I think he's probably entitled to make that journey. He was inevitably going that way anyway. My question for Robert would be, what is your plan? Because if you are a very ambitious politician, then I don't think the Reform Party is for you, because if you think you're going to be the leader of the Reform Party anytime soon, you're not going to be. So where do you sit in that, and do you accept that? And I think that's going to produce a really interesting dynamic. I'm pleased he went across. I see Reform as a party of change, or I did do. I'm starting to worry somewhat, because what we're seeing now is a load of old Tories joining them. So how do we escape the convention if all the people that were part of the convention have now joined the future change? I'm not sure. And that's a job for Nigel Farage to do. Now, look, they're all going to coalesce around Nigel Farage, but how do you make the change with the same people that caused the problems in the first place? Is the biggest question mark that still remains. And I think it's going to remain for some time. And I don't know where. I obviously understand that if they're planning for a general election that might take place in the next 12 to 18 months. So they've got to act quickly. And the only way they can do that is to bring experience in. And the only way they can get experience is to look back into the cohort of people that have perhaps got us into this problem. I think that they need to be brave at some point. There are people out there, I'm sure, that could be politicians that are out there in business now, may even be politicians elsewhere, that could be real conviction politicians that can stand behind Nigel Farage and enact change. But I think there's a lot of question marks still.
I think you're right. I think Farage is treading a tightrope, isn't he, politically? And the great attraction of Reform UK is that it's the insurgent change party, and if it's full of clapped out ex-Tories, then it will be continuity conservatism 2.0.
Yeah.
Just a few seconds, if you can, Paul. A very, very famous man, a well-known comedian and actor and writer, James Corden, of course, responsible for Gavin and Stacey, a big hit in the United States with a late-night talk show. Seems like the halo has slipped. What's going on with James Corden?
Well, I think this is something that's been coming for a long time, Mark. I think that there's been anecdotally a lot of stories about James Corden from people I know that have said he's an unpleasant character. The way that he's behaved with arrogance. I've never seen this. I've never met him, so how would I have done? But I think this is the chicken's coming home to roost, Mark. There's been far too many stories for this not to be true, and I think he's become this kind of pariah now, and TV bosses don't want to touch him. I mean, I'm sure he's handsomely wealthy, but he will miss that attention, and I don't know if he's got the attitude to pull it back round, to be fair.
Well, his career is behind him. Yours is ahead of you, Paul. Because
let's hope so, Mark.
You are a late bloomer. By the way, so excited about your YouTube channel. Tell my viewers this is what it's called so they can subscribe.
Yeah, please. It's just at Paul Cox Comedy on YouTube. I talk like, if you like what you just heard, this is the sort of thing I will talk more about, and I'll do it with a lot more humour, hopefully. Please come across at Paul Cox Comedy on YouTube. Thank you very much, Mark.
Of course, there are some very good people on YouTube these days. Paul, we'll catch up really soon. Really enjoyed that conversation. Is Britain broken? Your call's next.
Across the UK, on on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is Britain broken? It's 42 minutes past 7 on Talk Breakfast. Top of the morning to you. Happy Saturday one, and all the weekend starts here. What about the state of our country? John is in the northeast in Newcastle. Good morning, John.
Good morning to you. It has been broken for quite some time if people want to realise it or if they care about it. The reality is, if the Tory years been a farce, even before the Tories got in 14 years ago, Labour left a note saying there's nothing left in the bank. But we've got Labour again, and Labour's making just a bigger farce. Look at its manifesto. It's either upside down or backside foremost, whatever you want to say about it. It's a pure farce. And in relation to these local elections again, which I find a disgrace that they're going to be withheld again, as some of them were last year, and now over 20 Labour councils, to say the least, will not be having an election. And again, to me, that's another kick in the teeth for democracy. I blame the British people in general, myself, of course, over the years, if I'm one too. We just haven't got that get up and going with that. We just put up with anything here in this country.
Yeah.
It's just a farce. It is. I'm ashamed of this country, and I'm 80 now, and I just look back on the years and say, my God, it was so different many years ago. Of course, things change. We know that. But change for the worse, that's what it definitely is. And as I say, the local elections, we know why 20 Labour councils basically, don't want to have it at the present time. It's because of the Reform Party. That's what I believe. They can tell us different things, but I believe nothing less than that. They're frightened stiff. You know, this man Starmer, when he goes to bed at night, instead of counting sheep, he must count Farage. That's what he must be doing. Farage, Farage, Farage. It's always on his mind. He's always ranting on about it, and that's the way I think. No, the people of this country have really got to wake up to the fact that we can have something better, and hopefully in the future we will get something better.
That has to be the hope, doesn't it, John? I think a theme is emerging here from all of the calls and texts, which is that we have given up what has made this country successful. We've relinquished British values, British tradition, the British way of life.
Perfectly true, yeah. I agree with that.
And we've given that up. And I think you're right that we should blame ourselves. We've allowed this to happen.
Yes, indeed we have. These people are in power now. I haven't got any time for them. You know, as I say, it's just this manifesto. Why did they bother writing it out? Did they ever think about what they were wanting to do?
Yeah.
Because they've just turned on about 12, 13 things that, that they've turned around on it, which I've never known in the past. Maybe I haven't been up to date on it, but I've never known as many times, that a particular item's just been turned around and turned around. And to be honest, I don't have any faith in these politicians. I think they're very poor. I think some of them are in just for the money, to be honest, which is a shame. And this generic fella, well, yes, he's been a Conservative for many years. But even he sees the difference now, that something's really got to change. And it wouldn't change under the Conservatives. They're still relenting the fact that we should get out of the European Court of Human Rights. It's sad to do that if it does happen. But the reality is, what other choice have we got? We've got a population here. When I was a young man and I was 15, we had a population of around about 30 million people. Now we have 60 million people. Oh no, we have 68 million people.
Yeah.
And it's still getting bigger. There's no chance of it changing sometime soon. And I'm ashamed of this country, which is very sad to say, because, we Geordies are not ashamed of a lot of things. We're not.
No, it's a proud community, but, the country's changed beyond belief. No one voted for the country that Britain has become, John. With 5 million people coming here in a decade, that sort of demographic change is clearly unhealthy, clearly unworkable. terrible for our infrastructure and for the culture of the country. John, do you have, therefore, cautious optimism if there's political change at the next election?
Well, to be honest, never been a Conservative, but in the same respect, this man, Generic, he sort of lifted me up, sort of style. You know? This idea of this fella coming on board, he's a man that can speak from the, you know, he doesn't need paperwork in front of him.
Yeah.
He just gets on with it, just like Frost is. And I think, you know, I think we've got a possibility in this man, and you know, and I think things can change but the people have really got to wake up to the fact that it's just getting worse and worse. I mean, how can we just keep on bringing people into this country? We have no room. What about this immigration business? This immigration people, well, they're to believe now that they're being put into council houses, state-owned houses, and yet our own people, our young people, can't even get a one. They've been on the list for, 6 months, 9 months, maybe it's 1 or 2 years for all I know, but they can't get a place because obviously they haven't been building houses.
Yeah.
In France, when I go on holiday, I know some things about it, not a lot, but they build twice as many houses as what we do in a year. That's one thing I do know. I don't know the figures, but that's what I'm told by people that really know across there. And we're building twice as many houses, but we're a small island here. We're 2.5 times the size, less than France. That's Britain, not England. And, you know, we're just overcrowded, and it just can't go on. Our standards are so far dropped. When I was a lad, they used to march us down from school to have to the medical centre, and you know, we'd all have our teeth checked by a dentist, an NHS dentist. Oh yes, but nowadays, what we're told all these decades on, we're told that some people have been pulling their teeth out, their own teeth out. And another thing about this is a big thing, I think. Where I live and around where I live, most of them are private dentists.
Oh,
well, there's one big house. It's got 6 dentists in it, and they're all private within. And what's the good of that for the British people?
Why do we pay our taxes? John, I could talk to you for the rest of the show. Please call me again soon. You've spoken so much sense. You're in your 8th decade, and it's a credit to you that you care so much about this country. Can Britain be saved? Is it broken? What do you think about what the brilliant John in Newcastle has had to say there? So much to get through, folks. Is Britain broken? This at 10 to 8 on a Saturday morning is Talk Breakfast.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles. And
across the UK on DAB+. on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Is Britain broken? Well, I can tell you that the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, says no in the Telegraph today. Britain's not broken. Our best days lie ahead. Are we being gaslit by the political elite? Let's get the views of a Conservative councillor, Matthew Goodwin-Freeman, regular on the show, regular on Talk. Good morning, Matthew.
Morning, Mark. How are you?
Very well. First of all, who do you think was the winner from this week's political drama in relation to Jenrick's defection?
What political drama are you talking about? There were two winners.
Nothing to see here.
It was Kemi Badenoch and Reform. Both sides won.
Wow, that's an interesting
Kemi got rid of
answer.
her number one challenger, and Reform gained a fantastic defection and a quality MP.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a message here from PJ in Suffolk. How can someone who publicly leaks details of a shadow cabinet meeting be trusted by anyone? Jenrick is a disloyal weasel.
Well, look, I mean, the fact is, Jenrick had been talking about defecting for a while. It was open secret. It was the worst kept secret in Westminster, I think. The fact is that Jenrick's a quality MP. Who else was going out doing videos about fare dodgers, at car boots, on dodgy judges?
Yeah.
Who else was raising the bar to his colleagues and saying, guys, I'm going to go do what I need to do because that's what the public are caring about. You need to up your bar. And he was. There was a weird, unhappy coalition in the Conservatives of Jenrick didn't win, but was leading. And Kemi was starting to get better at PMQs, better at conference. There's an unhappy coalition there of, OK, this could work. But now with Jenrick gone and Kemi looking absolutely strong as leader, no challengers left in the tent. If you dare challenge me, you're gone. I wonder where those Jenrick supporters who wanted him to be leader but were happy to accept he can do what he wants on his comms and Kemi's getting better as well. I wonder where they now go and what that means for the future of the Conservative Party.
Well, the future for them is turquoise, isn't it? And that's a problem for Kemi Badenoch. Yes, she's lost a rival, but she's also lost the leading flag bearer for conservatism within her own party.
Yes, and what Jenrick said in that defection about being a small C Conservative, a centre-right Conservative, I really resonated with. I think that is where the Conservative Party has to pin itself on the spectrum. And look, let's be honest, I did not like the character assassination of Robert Jenrick from our colleagues. I did not like the fact people were going out saying, he's a traitor, he's unfaithful, he's this, he's that. I'm sorry. This is the guy who, if it weren't for him, I think we would be far further down in the polls. And yes, we've had this turn of the corner with Kemi and the team, people including Jenrick. But let's not forget, if we had 120 Robert Jenricks on July the 5th after the general election, we would not have had that collapse in the polls and now having to be rebuilding. So it works both ways. I do think we need to realise Robert Jenrick raised the bar for Conservatives. He was out there as a leading communicator, a man you could have a drink in the pub with. That's exactly what we're all jealous of Nigel Farage for being, someone who's a genuine, normal guy. And so I think people need to wake up and realise this is not the best news for us. I get the idea of you want a unified team and smoke anybody out. I get that, but you can't... There's two types of defections. There's defections where we never wanted them anyway, really poor quality defections, a lot of which Reform have been starting to get criticised for. You know, why are you letting just anybody in? And they're not letting anybody in, but, you know, what are you bringing for Reform? And then there's quality defections like Robert Jenrick. And I really think a lot of colleagues, a lot of the WhatsApp groups I'm in, they are either devastated and in mourning or celebrating. And to the ones who are celebrating, I ask, okay, are you going to start upping your comms? Are you going to start getting out there and going to the car boot sales and tackling dodgy judges and tackling fare dodgers? Because our only MP who did that's now gone.
Well, this is the issue. If I look at the makeup of the Conservative Party, Matthew, and I bow to your knowledge on this one, but my perception is that the leadership of the Conservative Party are right-wing. Kemi Badenoch is quite provably on the right of the party economically, culturally, and she has been for her entire political career. So you've got a truly Conservative leader and you've got a very Conservative membership, but those backbenchers, not so much.
Well, remember, Nigel Farage said that if you want to cut the Conservative Party apart at the moment, most of them would go to the Lib Dems and some of them would come to Reform. So that shows you where the Conservative MPs almost are. A lot of the right-wing Tories, the proper Conservative Tories that I align with, lost their seats at the 24 general election. Those proper proud of Britain, make Britain great again, our best days are ahead of us Conservatives, that sort of people are all gone. And so there's very few of them in Parliament that I now look at and go, yeah, your number one interest is putting the country first, improving Britain, and actually all those MPs are being rumoured to go to Reform anyway. So it's, from my point of view, as someone who's been in the Conservative Party for years, who's helped the Conservative Party, delivered victories for the Conservative Party, seeing what we've done this week to one of our best MPs, I find really disappointing, because I think he was the last hope. And whether or not he was going to be leader, he was holding this unhappy coalition of generic right-wing supporters and Kemi, liberal, loyal, faithful, conservative, been around all my life, holding them together because he was making us up the bar. And now he's gone. I think I really, really wonder what the next few weeks are going to be.
Where does it leave you, Matthew Goodwin Freeman?
Annoyed.
Yeah, exactly. And a long-standing Conservative supporter, now Conservative councillor. The reason why Reform UK are popular is because people just want right-wing policies, which they've been deprived of off the back of the Tories.
Well, I've got a long track record, at least, of standing up for what I care about for this country, standing up for this. I mean, Christ, I blazoned myself with our flag. So at least I know that I'm safe. And if people want to look at my track record, regardless of what party or what colour, they can go, yeah, Matthew's the guy who's always talking common sense and putting what I care about first. And so that's what I say to my Conservative colleagues, MPs and councillors. Stop putting yourself first and start putting this country first.
Brilliantly put. Matthew, thank you so much for getting up to talk to us this morning. A really interesting conversation, an important conversation. Matthew Goodwin Freeman, Conservative councillor. Listen, lots to get through at 7:59 on a Saturday morning. First of all, is Britain broken? I want to know your thoughts on that, because you, unlike the political establishment, live in the real world. 03444991000. Plus, by the way, turns out net zero, bad for the economy. Don't go anywhere.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 8. I've been on air 2 hours now. Has anyone defected to reform since we came on air? Kemi, is she on her way? Is she shaking hands with Nigel Farage? A very good morning to you. Happy Saturday, one and all. The weekend starts here. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. And the fallout continues following the defection of former Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick to Reform UK, with a bitter war of words breaking out between the Conservatives and Nigel Farage's insurgent party. So where does this leave the political right as the Tories brand reform a bunch of liars? Who wins this battle for the soul of British conservatism? And more importantly, the battle for votes at the next general election. Is the real winner Sir Keir Starmer? Now, this morning, Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the opposition, insists that Britain is not broken, whilst Reform argue that our great national project is in crisis, that this country is in terminal decline. So what do you think? Is Britain broken? 0344 499 1000. You live in this country. You live in the real world. You're not in the media, political and corporate bubble. You're the one struggling to get a GP appointment or see a dentist. You're the one struggling to get a school place for your child, to have affordable rent, to get a mortgage, to deal with your credit card bills. You're the one facing inflation when you go to the supermarket and fill your car with petrol. You're the one that walks down the street thinking, am I going to get my mobile phone snatched out of my hand or my watch stolen? Am I going to get burgled? Are my kids safe? So tell me, folks, you decide, is Britain broke? 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222, or you can leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. It's an important question, isn't it? I've got a message from Martin in Lichfield who says, good morning, Mark. I voted Conservative all my life until 2022. I'm approaching 67 now. And we had Boris the Betrayer, net zero, uncontrolled legal immigration and the boats. Out of control, high tax and wokery. That is socialism, not conservatism. I'll be voting Reform. It's not perfect by any means, but it's a much better alternative to the other failed parties. At least the leadership has actually worked and run a business. Jenrick is a great asset from the blob and political establishment. A good mix of both is creating a strong team. Definitely worth a try. Martin, thank you for that. We'll be discussing how Reform UK might govern should they win the next general election. We'll be joined live on the programme in just over half an hour's time by the Deputy Leader, Richard Tice. That's right, Richard Tice at 8:45. Don't miss it. But with me in the studio, I'm delighted to welcome broadcaster, political commentator and senior meteorologist at British Weather Services, Jim Dale. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Mark.
And we have Phil Dave, who's broadcaster, political commentator and talk executive producer, who is down the line. Good morning to you, Phil.
A very good morning, Mark.
It's great to have both of you on. We've got lots of stories to get through. I want to get into the Robert Jenrick race row in the next part. But Jim, let's start with you if I can in the studio. Is Britain broken?
No, Britain's not broken. One of the reasons that people want to come here in boats or otherwise is the fact that it's not broken. What the broken Britain thing is a soundbite produced by Reform UK to do Britain down. That's essentially what it is. And if you look at even this particular month, we've seen statistics coming in in terms of the economy rising 0.3% in December, not revised 0.1% up in November, not down but up. Murder rates down substantially in the great city of London. NHS waiting lists down. I mean, I could go on. There's quite a list, and we're in a transition zone from the last government. Now, where that's come from and why Jenrick has said what he said about broken Britain is just to jump on that bandwagon, because that's what he's doing, self-serving. That's what he is. And to be honest with you, he was in a government, and the heart of the government, so if it is broken, he broke it. But I'm not saying it is. He's now just jumping on that soundbite, saying you know, giving the reform view of it. Why? Because they want to paint Britain as falling apart when it isn't. It isn't. And, you know, there's plenty good in Britain. And I think, to be honest with you, I'm a positive person, and I look for the positives. And very many times, if you look at what reforms say from time to time, it's all negative. If that's how you want to live your life, go and vote reform, because that's what you're going to get.
Was Keir Starmer positive about Britain? Phil, I'll come to you in 1 second. Phil, I'll come to you in 1 second. Was Sir Keir Starmer positive about Britain in the run-up to the last election? I think you'll find that he talked the country down, and Rachel Reeves didn't just talk the country down before the election, she talked the country down while she was Chancellor, which is why she killed growth.
Well, Matt, you're saying down. Definitely we were going in the wrong direction, and if the wrong direction is down, then that's the direction that Keir Starmer and others picked up. And not, by the way, not just them, but the electorate at the general election. They made it very clear that we were going in the wrong direction. It wasn't broken as such, but it was breaking, if that's the right word. And so it's a direction of travel that we had to turn the thing around. And now I think, a year and a half in, with three and a bit years to go to the next general election, I think we're starting to see the shoots.
But you are, Jim, you are tap dancing on a pin at the moment with this one, because you're saying that Starmer said that the country was breaking, but Reform UK and Nigel Farage are not allowed to say that the country is broken. I mean, what's the difference?
Well, because it's not broken.
Breaking?
It's just taking.
Breaking?
Well, I say breaking. I'm not sure he used those words.
You say tomato. I say tomato.
I said you said down, and I think that the direction of travel. Or in the last government, it was going down, and everybody could see it.
Phil, Dave, you're in charge. Over to you.
Well, people will be very worried by that prospect. But no, it's very simple. As far as I'm concerned, what means the country is broken is more the spirit of the country. People feel as though this country is no longer working for them. So as much as I understand why on paper things might be improving, in inverted commas, the problem is that it has fallen so far and people feel so disenchanted with what was once such a beautiful country that unfortunately Britain very much is broken. And for as long as the political elite go around saying it's not, that fills people with even more despair. They need to see the politicians who are just as passionate as they are, really wound up as they are, as how much their services are no longer working, the potholes all over Britain that are causing mayhem to people's cars, not to mention the attack on people who drive just to get around and just to do their shopping, not to mention, of course, all the NHS, the school places, the uncontrolled migration. Everything is seemingly going wrong, and people need to wake up and realise that if we don't do this, we will lose what was once Britain forever.
Well, look, we're a year and a half into the government, this new government, and the fact remains is that you don't just flick your fingers and say the magic wand comes out and everything is better in a month.
But Jim, they're making it worse. They're making it worse for so many people. Yes, Phil, of course they are. For so many people.
I've just given you and listeners and viewers the turnaround, if you like. The economy is starting to recover.
0.3% a turnaround? Are we celebrating 0.3%?
It's better than going down.
Donald Trump, right, that really evil Donald Trump, the bad orange man, has achieved 4.3% growth in a quarter of a year. We can't manage that in 12 months.
No, look, we're not dissimilar to the rest of Europe in that respect. That all countries in Europe have gone through a period of, I say, inflation to begin with, because it was interest rate. You know, just go back to Truss and the problem that we had there. All right, beaten by the lettuce.
That old chestnut. You're obsessed with Truss.
I'm not obsessed with Truss. The fact remains is that the mortgage rates at that time, I won't get over it.
Liz Truss was Prime Minister for 44 days.
She'll be the next one to join the bandwagon, as far as I'm concerned. Her or Braverman.
If only she was Prime
Hopefully
Minister.
she'll get more of a chance this time.
Phil, Dave, I would have Liz Truss back in a flash.
So would I, absolutely. She was, honestly, she was like one of the most underrated prime ministers and not given a chance because, unfortunately, her party turned on her because they thought that the way forward was to go down some sort of liberal leftist route. It was horrendous.
Liz Truss had a 23,000 majority, give or take. Impregnable, you would have thought. Any MP would stand that. Lost. Now, that's the electorate voting. That's how we do these things in a democracy. She fouled up big time. And you know what? The people who had mortgages at the time know absolutely full well what she did. Her and Kwantang at the same time messed around, thought they could just play this comic game with the economy. And down it went. And you can't rub that away. And here she's in the background now, getting paid hundreds of thousands a year because she's an ex-PM, essentially doing the same thing, doing down Britain.
Liz Truss is not the story here. I will grant you...
I was going to say, I fundamentally disagree with that. Don't get me wrong. I don't really want to go down the route of Liz Truss because she isn't the Prime Minister anymore. We've got Sir Keir Starmer for some ridiculous reason. And let's focus on the fact that in spite of everything to suggest otherwise, the leader of the opposition still seems to think that Britain is not broken, and that is very disconcerting. That's going to cause a lot of people a lot of it's going to be disconcerting to a lot of people because they see Britain is broken.
Yeah, she's pulling it back. She's doing the right thing in actual fact. Oh, I won't say that very often, but she is doing the right thing. She's, what's happened since Generic has left is that the Tory party, not just Generic, but the other guy in midweek, the horse guy, the tax guy who warmed his horses, etc. I mean, these people, he jumped the fence. This is like the reform of becoming like a toilet depository for Tories who were in government, who were responsible for the downward trend in the UK, now are all in reform. I don't know how many there are now, but it's essentially Mark II Tories with Farage leading it, who used to be a Tory, by the way, as Tice used to be a Tory. He'll be on soon, won't he? I wish I could stay and debate with him, the climate change, the Pied Piper of climate change deniers.
Well, we will come to net zero in just a moment because the Bank of England has said it's going to slow economic growth, of which you're so fond. Now, you are hanging on, we're so excited about this 0.3% growth, Jim. But let's have a look at some of the other key metrics. Inflation, incredibly sticky, almost 4%. It was 2% under Rishi Sunak. Unemployment up. Cost of government borrowing up, higher than after Liz Truss's mini budget. The national debt up. The deficit up. This country is broken. If you deny that, you're insulting my viewers and listeners.
I'll insult them then, because it's not. It's as simple as that.
How dare you be so arrogant?
It's not a case of arrogance, it's a case of truth.
Just because
Jim, can I ask you a question? Do you feel like you've got more money in your pocket since Labour came to power?
Well, that's Phil, that's a very personal question.
But I'm prepared to answer that. I feel like, no, I don't.
But the answer is that I'm not dependent personally on what the government is doing. The answer to it is yes.
There are so many
that's
people
why
who
you think Britain's not broken.
No,
because
it's
you're
not.
in
It's
a
not
bubble.
It's not a personal view.
Because you're a well-heeled meteorologist taking the net zero dollar, which is an absolute gravy train. Look at you. You're a fat cat. You don't live in the real world, Jim.
I don't earn anything from net zero.
You're on TV the whole time.
Not on the whole time.
Peddling your climate emergency.
Yeah, we're having a good go here, aren't we?
No, but I mean, I do have viewers and listeners that will feel like, if you're glibly saying Britain's not broken, they'll be like, well, try getting a doctor's appointment.
Okay, so I'll emphasise it like this. We're in a recovery stage. And when you're in the recovery, you still feel injured.
Is this what recovery looks like?
Recovery from what we had previously. Okay, what we had previously, the generic, the horse guy. You're going to give me his name in a minute. You know who I'm talking about.
He's off to the knackers yard.
Yeah, him. And many others responsible for what that was at the time have now jumped and find themselves in the toilet depository of Reform UK, which is what it is. So, in a way, Badenoch is probably rubbing her hands as much as Starmer is, because she's cleansing her party of the damage that was done by these individuals.
I think
she's actually isolating people who are true conservatives, and as a result of it, they feel they have no alternative but to go to Reform UK. And just for the record, Jim, this might shock you. I agree with you in the sense that I don't want a load of failed Tories to go to Reform UK. There are so many people who are actually pinning their hopes on Reform UK actually being the ones who might be able to do something and save this country from the doom it faces.
Well, that's now in Problem Street, as far as, and that's why Badenoch and Starmer are quite happy about it, because the one thing that you could say is if Jenrick had stayed and then become leader, which I think was his goal until what happened, then the amalgamation or the joint sort of enterprise of Reform and Tories in 3 years' time could well have been the axis by which the Tories and Reform could get in together. No longer, you see. The right stroke far right is now broken. If we're not talking
when are things, Jim, going to get better? Because I will give you what we've had over 14 years is national decline. I will give you that under the Conservatives.
Right, okay, so we're agreed on that.
I will give you that. But my question
to you is... But that does not include the decline from the Labour Party before that.
What's happened is, and also
after
you got that. You can have a history lesson about Tony Blair and Gordon Brown in particular. But let's get to 2026, Jim.
Yeah.
And life is harder for my viewers and listeners. You've got policies from this government that are inflating the debt and causing prices to rise as well. That's terrible for my viewers and listeners.
I think you before you mentioned that, you said, are we going to see the sunlight, essentially?
When's it happening? You're a meteorologist.
I actually believe, I am. And, I'm an optimist, I'm a positive person, and I actually believe. And you can see you can see it happening now in small doses. That's why we have to be a little bit more patient. And I recognise out there are people who are struggling, there are people who, because of inflation, and some of that inflation isn't our own inflation, it's imported inflation, food from abroad, etc.
It's 2% under Rishi. It's now nearly 4%.
Inevitable in terms of...
Inevitable if you give pay rises to the public sector and print money.
Giving pay rises to the public sector means that they are lifted out of even more poverty than they were in under the Conservative Party.
The train drivers on 70 grand or the
hang on a sec, but now that there are people like me who are really hard working and I feel like I'm more impoverished, so why don't I matter? Why should it be public sector?
Look, everybody's matters, but if you look down at your feet all day, then you're going to have a problem. You're going to feel that you're down. What you've got to do is get up.
I don't feel that I'm down. I am. That's factually accurate. If I could actually show you bank statements, I wouldn't do it on live on air because that would be a bit grotesque, but to actually show you bank statements, I could prove I am down on since the Labour government.
There's another thing in this, beyond government, if you like. If you walk into your supermarket, you look at a chocolate bar, for example, you see the price has virtually doubled in the last 2 to 3 years. And I mean that. It's actually doubled from where it was to where it is. Easter, etc., blah, blah, blah. You can see that. So what I'm getting at here is it's not just what's happening globally or even within Britain, it's also what happens within the supermarkets. Greed comes into this in terms of then keeping the prices. We all know something goes up and they never come down when the actual
there's definitely an element of greed, no doubt about it.
I don't think there is. Phil, the margins of the supermarkets are wafer thin.
No, I know, but this is what I'm saying. So there's definitely an element of greed, but I don't blame the supermarkets. I blame the original source for wherever the supermarkets are buying these things from.
Well, the original source, Phil, can actually be, for cocoa, for example, is the Western Africa. As well, is climate-driven to a large degree, so the climate doesn't play ball, which it hasn't. Prices go up. Actually, since over the last year, they've come down because it's gone in the right direction. But has chocolate prices come down? No, they haven't. So I'm sure there are many people who walk into these places, whether we're looking at clothes or petrol, oil, all of that sort of stuff that went up because of Putin hasn't hardly come down.
Correct, and an awful lot of the problem with that as well, Jim, is based on business rates, which this government seems hell-bent on imposing on these companies. It's about their timing. Listen, there may well be more money to be made by imposing business rates on certain organisations, but at a time when it's right, they have to deal first and foremost with, and I speak as the son of a landlord, by the way, they have to deal with landlords, and I don't mean pub landlords, I mean property landlords, who can be themselves quite greedy and want to continuously make the most amount of money possible out of their asset. I don't blame them for it, but what I do blame is successive governments saying, well, that's okay, you charge whatever you want. Subsequently, prices in shops go sky high, and we, the consumer, pay the price for it. Not to mention on top of everything else that this government is trying to impose, whether it is abolishing various duties, various taxes to help people. It's just unbelievable. It's like everyone is working against us.
Andrew in North Yorkshire, Jim Dale, your guest, echoes Labour and is exactly the reason why the UK is broken and going down the pan. If Jim really thinks that what he says is true, then he's misguided and out of touch. Roll on a general election and let's get Labour in the dustbin. How about this from John? Please ask your guest, Jim Dale, what colour the clouds are in his world. And finally, Richie says, my goodness, Jim sounds like someone who's been scripted by ChatGPT with the request, please gaslight me with left-wing rhetoric. Let me tell you, Jim, we love having you on the show.
Thank you.
Right to reply. Go for it.
Yeah. Look, Mark, the thing about this is we're actually debating. It's great to be able to do that. talkTV allows that to happen.
You've been cancelled by a couple of networks, haven't you, really?
GB News. They just don't like... Oh, I've just named names. Because that's what... Look, nobody else. I go on the BBC, Radio 4, LBC, Times Radio, just downstairs.
Really, that's good.
I get around. Not, a lot of it obviously to do with climate and weather per se, but some of it overlaps, and that's the way it goes. We like the fact that talkTV, and I've been on many presenters at talkTV, love the debate, because that's what it should be. It should be a debate so we can discuss and get to the truth of the matter, not just have a talking shop, Reform HQ at GB News, which is what it actually is.
Well, of course,
Actually, Jim, can I ask a question? Before when you said you're not profiting from net zero, is that statement completely true if you're being booked on all of these different channels for your opinion on it?
Well, Phil, you don't get paid a great deal on these sort of things, but that doesn't matter. It's not a case of that. Net zero will be the catalyst going forward, and I think we're going to discuss it anyway.
We are.
So I'll leave it at that, and we'll come back to it when we discuss it.
Well, listen, let me tell you, whatever they pay you, it's worth every penny, Jim, because what we want to do is hear opinions, and 9.5, 10 million people voted Labour at the last election. I'm guessing you're one of them, and therefore it's very important to have that perspective. Is Britain broken, is the question. Jim Dale and Phil Dave with me in the studio. Next up, Robert Jenrick accused of racism by a former close Conservative colleague. We'll debate that next.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Talk Breakfast 8:29. Now, obviously, we cover the news, but sometimes the news happens on this channel and on this show. It happened yesterday. Robert Buckland, Sir Robert Buckland, former Lord Chancellor, former Justice Secretary under the Conservatives, accusing his former friend and ex-colleague Robert Jenrick of borderline racism for saying that parts of the West Midlands were like a slum and that he hadn't seen a white face on his visit there. Take a listen to the clip from yesterday's interview on Talk Breakfast.
The sort of toughness that I like to see. I'm proud of her today for what she's done. And I'm sad that a former colleague, close colleague of mine, Robert, we were in cabinet together, in government together for a long time, has now transmogrified from a Conservative into some sort of pound shop Enoch Powell. It really is an edifying spectacle.
Wow, the gloves are off. Pound shop Enoch Powell. Now, Enoch Powell is a former Conservative politician who was accused of racism, particularly in regard to his rivers of blood speech. Is it not a little harsh laying that at Robert Jenrick's door? All he wants to do is scrap net zero and close the border.
No, some of his language in recent months has been really, really bordering on the incendiary. In fact, incendiary. It doesn't help to talk about places in Britain as being entirely absent when it comes to white people. It doesn't help to divide communities.
Borderline racist is what Robert Buckland has had to say about his former friend, Mr. Jenrick. Phil Dave, your reaction?
Well, the problem is, I'm afraid this is just another example of people who are out of touch and don't realise how people feel. There are genuinely those who are quite concerned, but probably not for the reason that they are quick to accuse everyone from. So from my perspective, if it is factually accurate to say that you go into parts of Birmingham and you hardly see a white face, is that racist or is that fact? That's debatable. Now, the question is whether or not that matters. And the reason why I think it matters is not because it means that there are people who come to this country who potentially were not born and raised here, but instead it means that we clearly have a problem with integration and people feeling like that they can become part of the fabric of the society of Britain. And that's where I think there is a major issue here, because for as long as we're not brave enough to have these conversations and to actually state that we are ghettoizing part of the country, then I'm afraid this problem is just going to keep happening. And as far as I can tell, I don't really sort of see what the problem with the political elite is. Why are they so scared of just saying it how it is?
Yes, I mean, let's stay on this if we can, Phil, because last weekend we welcomed Emma Wolf into the studio, a good friend of mine, broadcaster, not a racist person, of course, she's incredibly liberal-minded, but her son goes to a primary school in London, and it's the sort of demographic split of the school is around sort of 90% non-white, and he's the only white kid, more or less, in his classroom, and she's not happy about that. Can you see where she's coming from?
I can see where she's coming from in the sense that, like me, she probably remembers a time when Britain looked very different. Now, whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, we could probably sit here for the rest of the show and debate that. But you cannot, or not you, one cannot overlook that there are many people who do feel a bit unnerved at the way that this country is changing. As I say, does it matter? Personally, I think not. But what I think does matter is the fact that there are clearly quite a lot of people who would rather not integrate and become part of British society. Instead, they would rather ghettoise certain areas and change them beyond recognition. And that's why we're seeing this situation where we've got various parts of the country that do look, in inverted commas, vastly different to how some people might remember. And I personally think that integration is a major, major problem.
So what do you think about this, Jim? Robert Jenrick goes to parts of Birmingham and says, I didn't see a white face for the entire visit. Is that racist?
It's overt racism without a question. He didn't need to say it. If I get on a tube station and it's full of, for example, Jews, you know, you can recognise them and what have you. If I've got a megaphone and I'm going to come on TV or whatever, you say, oh, by the way, I was on a train, I was full of... He's done it for a specific reason, to stir the pot. And that's what he's doing. It's part of that equation of Reform UK, yet again, or where he was in the Tory party, that extremism that basically, how can I put this? It feeds the narrative, doesn't it? That we can't integrate, that we're being taken over, etc., etc. Probably and arguably, most of those people that he actually saw were British, British born, which is the way. And by the way, it's not just this country; it's every country. That's the way of the world. The United States, Germany. You look, it's the same there as it is. So, you know, rather than bring that up, he could have said something else. He could have said it in a different way, but he had to bring it up from a racial point of view. So in my view, it's overt racism. He's in the right party for it, and that's it.
But Jim, is it racist even if it's factually accurate? So, for example, like, I'm just to clarify, I am of Jewish heritage, right? So I don't want anyone to write in and complain about this. If I was to go into the heart of Golders Green in London and say that there are a lot of Jewish people in Golders Green, that is factually accurate, but it doesn't make me a racist for saying it.
No, but you don't, but Phil, you wouldn't need to say it, would you, if you didn't have a reason to say it? And the reason to say it is to stir the pot. You wouldn't say it, I wouldn't say it.
So you genuinely don't think that people have a right to be concerned about how there are some who clearly choose not to integrate?
Look, there's always going to be a what's the word here? People who don't see the future or don't see what's around them, and they it's like, how can I put this? It's like you meet a stranger and you're not sure about that stranger. You know, I went to a Muslim. What do you call it?
You went to I'm struggling as well now. A mosque.
A mosque, that's the word. I went to a mosque in London, not to and you know, I was accepted for what I am, and I accepted them for what they are. And actually, it was extremely
going to a place of worship, though. That's designed.
Well, it wasn't. I wasn't going to worship. I was actually on TV.
No,
that's
what I mean
there.
is that it's very different to actually go to a place of worship, which is obviously clearly geared towards one religion. But when you're talking about everyday
no, but the guys are
situations,
fine. I got no problem with this. Look, it's the person. It's not the colour of their skin. That's what you've got to get across. There are bad people, white people. There are bad people, brown people, black people.
Agree.
And that's the way it is.
Well,
I agree. I don't think it's about colour of skin at all, per se. I think this is about integration.
Well,
I think
this is
about how there are certain sectors of society who clearly would rather stick to who they know. And by the way, I speak for my people in my own community as well. Would rather stick to who they know and don't want to
But that happens
integrate
to
with
English
others.
people. That happens to British people going abroad to places like Dubai, for example, and they will sit around or India, and they will sit around where British people
are. They're not
are.
fundamentally changing the look of the country, though, are they?
No, and when you go to, let's say, the Far East, or you go to Dubai, or any vast swathes of the world, you have to obey their rules and customs, and you can't impose your will and your cultural mores onto them. Whereas we
it really
are a soft touch.
I consider it really ill-mannered to go to another country and not try and respect their rules and regulations.
We're going to continue this conversation because it's absolutely exploded. And don't forget, Richard Tice joins me in just over 10 minutes' time. But first, time now to find out how you could be in with a chance of winning a trip of a lifetime to San Francisco, USA. Talk is giving away flights, a 3-night stay at a 4-star Intercontinental Hotel, and £2,500 worth of spending money, plus tickets to the Super Bowl to top it all off. Listen now to find out how you can enter.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343-418-7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at TalkSport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Richard Tice joins us in 5 minutes' time on Talk Breakfast. Front page of the Telegraph newspaper. Net zero policies are slowing the global economy, the Governor of the Bank of England has warned. Both climate change and initiatives to tackle it are among the main factors dragging down growth, Andrew Bailey said in a speech. He said headwinds facing the world economy included climate-related economic shocks and the consequences of the policies chosen to tackle these shocks. His comments are likely to fuel the debate about the speed and cost of reaching net zero. Phil, Dave, your reaction to this?
Well, first and foremost, I think that the most essential thing to remember is that net zero is ultimately a fallacy. It is ultimately impossible. You're never going to get to net zero. Now, whether or not that means that we can ultimately improve the way that we use energy and the way that we treat the environment, well, that's a separate discussion. But for what I absolutely despise in all of this is that the way that we're constantly drummed into us that we've got to get to net zero when actually it's impossible to get to net zero. So I'm not saying that we don't need to improve our behaviour towards how we treat the environment, but I certainly don't appreciate it to the detriment of our pockets.
OK, what do you think about this, Jim? It's not a ringing endorsement from the Governor of the Bank of England. It proves what people thought. It's making us poorer, net zero.
It's spinning by the Daily Telegraph as they normally do.
Quoting the Governor of the Bank of England.
Well, I'm not sure. I think they've misquoted him, to be honest. I'll be very surprised, given his position and what the city generally. I'm often in the city talking to seminars and others, talking to city people, insurance, etc. And they're massively for it. Let's make it absolutely clear. And there's a big reason. There's a huge reason behind it, and it isn't just about clean air. It's about pulling back from a catastrophe that's going to happen and that is starting to unfold across the years. So let me ask Phil: do you believe that man-made climate change is a hazard that is likely to impact more and more as time goes on?
Not to the degree that you do, no.
Not to the degree. So eyes wide shut, because we've just had the three warmest years in modern history, 2025 being the third warmest.
I don't deny the climate changes, Jim. I know that.
What
about
I just don't cold winter we've had?
Yeah, that's the cold winter we had. I hate to say this, but that's what numpties put up as far as excuses. It's a winter period. Of course, we have during the winter time we have sporadic outbursts of polar air that comes down and affects us, like it has once so far, like it did last year. We might get another one towards the end of this month. Watch the space. But that's kind of normal everyday. The overturn of weather. That's what happens, but not to the degree globally of what we're seeing. And farmers out there, as you know, you lost 800 million quid last year because of the heat and the drought that went on. It's affecting all parts of the world. We have to do something about it. Net zero, and you say not net zero, we're not going to get there. Well, there are countries that are already there. There's 2 or 3 of them that have already there. Costa Rica for one, for example. So you can get there. And when we do get there, it will start to reduce the temperature profile of the greenhouse effect. I wish I could stay for Richard Tice, because really and truly, that's a discussion and a debate that needs to happen into the future. Yeah, okay. Because
Jim,
he's called it garbage. Can we call is man-made climate change garbage, Phil? Yes or no?
Well, the reason why I believe that there is an element of it that is garbage, I don't think the whole statement is, but the reason why I think an element is because that this planet has survived so much worse. It has survived leaded petrol, for starters. It has survived industrial revolution, where people were burning coal left, right and centre. People used to actually have fireplaces that would churn out goodness only knows what. There used to be the situation where most people's cars were more of a hazard than they are now.
Those are all the ingredients of where we are now. That's exactly what's happened over the period.
Our cars produce far less emissions than they ever did.
They do now because a lot of them are electric.
people don't burn... No, the vast majority aren't electric, you know that, right? The vast majority of cars are not electric. Furthermore, also people don't burn coal fireplaces anymore. Factories are more aware of these things. You know, we've never lived in cleaner air,
Phil,
and
United
yet we're still
States
being told that we're in a disaster.
Yeah, in 2025, the United States went backwards, OK? It put out more emissions than they have for many years. Now, obviously,
and we're
Trump's
still
in
here.
There. Well, we're still here. You've got to open your eyes, Phil. You know, people.
No,
out there,
I think what we need to open our eyes to
on.
is the bigger threat that faces this great world of ours now. Lunatics like the despot dictators in Iran, in Russia. These are the true
sideline.
threats.
That's an absolute sideline.
It's a major threat.
I'm
not saying
it's not a major problem. I'm not saying that. But the bigger problem for us all, doesn't matter what political colour you are, that this is coming. And if you don't believe me, okay, you don't have to believe me. This is put out by NASA, it's put out by NOAA, it's put out by WMO, IPCC. All of these bodies, scientific bodies, are saying the same thing. So
there
what do we follow? Do we follow Nigel Farage and Richard Tice, who've got nothing behind them whatsoever, apart from an old guy in a white coat that they put up to put, you know, that's where we're at, the ridiculous state that we have to follow these guys and what they say rather than reputable scientific bodies that can send whatever robots to the moon and to Mars, etc. You know, which side of the equation do you want to be on? That's where I'm talking about here.
I want to be on the sensible middle ground. I think that there is scope for everything, but what I can't stand is the hysteria around it. I don't believe for a second that the world is going to end tomorrow if we don't change something
I don't say it's going to end tomorrow either.
But there are plenty of people, though, Jim, with the greatest amount of respect, who are on your side of the argument here, who would say that. They'll say, oh, my goodness me, look at these nutcases that we've got in Extinction Rebellion and stuff like that.
OK, last word.
Yeah, for some people, you know, the madness, you've got it, net zero madness, you've got it on the thing there across the TV. It's not madness. It's net zero common sense. That's what it is. It's common sense. And, you know, the common sense is to move this in this direction for cleaner air and to stop us going down the greenhouse route, which is, you know, we all learned about at school, and that's exactly what is going on.
Mark, I know that you've got to get to Tice, but can I ask a really quick question? Really quick question. Jim, how do you understand why people think, though, with some sense of cynicism here, when they hear about things like the ozone layer and the greenhouse effects and all of these things that we've been told over the different years, none of those have worked, so now suddenly the latest incarnation is climate change. People just don't buy into it, and we're still here.
The ozone layer was a perfectly tenable thing that occurred, and then they all closed because we got rid of a lot of the aerosols that actually managed that out. Climate change hasn't changed. It's as simple as that. It is coming.
Well, there you go. Can Britain afford it? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. My thanks to Phil Dave. Great job down the line from his home studio, and the marvellous Jim Dale. Jim, great to see you. Please come back soon. Senior meteorologist at British Weather Services and also leading political commentator. We love debate. It's all about debate. This is Talk Breakfast. Next up, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, and a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
The Robert Buckland, Robert Jenrick race row is going to be tackled in Dolan's Dispatch in 10 minutes' time. You won't want to miss it. But joining us on Talk Breakfast right now at 10 minutes to 9 in the morning is Richard Tice, who is the Deputy Leader of Reform UK. Richard, good to see you. A belated Happy New Year, and a Happy New Year for the party. You've got quite the feather in your cap with the arrival of Robert Jenrick MP to your Reform UK fold.
Yes, good morning and Happy New Year to you belatedly, Mark. It's good to see you and your glorious listeners. And yes, it's been a very good week for Reform UK. Delighted to welcome Robert Jenrick to the team. We are growing, we are accelerating. And I do take issue with the analogy you used earlier this morning, before 7 o'clock, when you compared us to the Tories, a bit like Aldi and Lidl. That's completely wrong, Mark. You're comparing fresh, delicious, strong British beef compared to soggy, out-of-date stodge. That's the difference between the two parties, Mark. We're the new entrepreneurial political party on the block with the bright ideas, the business-like approach to things. We're now bringing in the sort of the ministerial experience that Robert brings, and that's why it's been so well received, and that's why we will continue to lead in the polls, having led in the last 200 or so by an average of about 9 or 10%.
Most definitely. Well, perhaps the Reform UK are Tesco. Every little helps. A question for you, though, this morning, Richard, is how many ex-Tory MPs, ex-Tory government ministers is too many for the Reform project?
Well, next week, Mark, you've got to look forward to the possibility of someone coming from the Labour Party. So, look, we've said that we're not taking any more defections after the May elections, May the 7th. And look, it's a blame. We were criticised for not having any sort of governing ministerial experience. We've brought some of that in, and yet we're still being criticised. In a sense, you can't win. Look, that's the nature of political challenge and debate. We get that. Ultimately, there's nothing like proving and performing, and that's what we're doing. I'm head of Doge, running the councils, and you will hear confirmation over the coming weeks that Reform councils, we will have the lowest average council tax rises of any of the political parties running councils. And that's because in just a few months, we're already making great savings. We're improving outcomes for residents, improving customer service. It's still very early days, but we're also getting ready for the May elections, where we're allowed to have them, where they haven't been cancelled by the authoritarian dictator, Keir Starmer.
Well, you do have to wonder, don't you, what it is about the prospect of an electoral wipeout that has caused Labour to cancel these local elections, because the map would turn turquoise if those elections were allowed to go ahead.
They would indeed. I think there are, of the 29 councils that have applied to cancel their elections, some 22 are Labour. They're absolutely for it. They are terrified that in many areas, as you say, they're going to be wiped out. And that's because of the damage they're doing to the country. They haven't stopped the boats. People are getting poorer. Taxes are up. The cost of living is soaring because of Next Stupid Zero, which is an absolute obsession by Red Ed Miliband. Reform would scrap that. The cost of energy is so critical to the competitiveness of British industry. Sadly, industries are closing down, are laying off jobs. We've seen it all over the place, whether it's Luton car plants, whether it's the Lindsay oil refinery, whether it's at Grangemouth. The list is long and very sad. And that's all because of the ludicrous net stupid zero policies that were started by the Tories and now being accelerated by Labour. And reform will turn that around. We will get the cost of living down, get the great oil and gas treasure, the energy under our feet, offshore, onshore. Let's use it. It's valuable.
Drill, baby, drill. An energy mix is all people want. That will make common sense, and that certainly needs to be the policy of a future government. Otherwise, it's the road to ruin. I tend to agree with you. You mentioned democracy, though, and I share your concerns about these cancelled local and mayoral elections. Why, therefore, won't there be a by-election on the part of Robert Jenrick so that he can get the people of Newark to elect him as a Reform UK MP?
Well, he was elected by his constituents, and they know his principles and values. And those principles and values actually are what used to be known as conservatism. But the Conservative Party basically became a sort of bunch of con-socialists, stroke Lib Dems, and Robert was battling against that. But his constituents, they knew exactly what he stood for. He hasn't changed, but he realised that he can't change his party, and he realised that the only party that can beat the dreadful socialism, almost communism of the Labour government is Reform UK under the strong leadership of Nigel Farage.
It seems like double standards, though, because Reform are crying wolf about cancelled elections, but won't have one for their latest recruits. The bottom line is the people of Newark voted Conservative, and what they've now got is Reform. That's not democracy, is it?
They voted for Robert Jenrick. They voted for his principles and values, and absolutely, that's what democracy is all about. And actually, he's got huge support both within his constituency and elsewhere. I think you'll see us continue to go up in the polls. There's a massive difference between being elected to a constituency and actually cancelling elections. And that's why we're launching a judicial review against the government, against these cancelled elections. Whether or not we can change the course, I don't know. That'll be for the judges and the lawyers. But we're certainly going to have a serious go because it's just not acceptable. Over 4 million people, Mark, are being denied the right to vote.
Mr. Tice, front page of the Daily Mirror, Reform chief blasted. Farage can't be trusted with Britain, says the Defence Secretary John Healey. Clearly, the Reform offer is that you will invest in our defences should you win the next election. What percentage figure of GDP do you think we could hope for in the first year of a Reform UK government?
Dear Mr. Healey has conveniently forgotten that in the general election contract that we produced, we were the only party that said we'd go to 2.5% in 3 years of GDP and 3% within 6 years. And this Labour government's talking the talk, but they're not delivering. They've delayed their much-awaited defence investment plan by almost a year now. They won't give confirmation about it. They're delaying the purchase of contracts like the Leonardo medium-lift helicopter contract. And they're essentially talking about putting boots on the ground, and yet everybody knows that actually we simply don't have the boots or the kit to do that in anything more than a very short-term period.
So can you update those numbers for me? The first year of a Reform UK government, a Reform UK Parliament, what percentage of GDP are we looking at? Is it 2.5%, 20, 29, 30?
We've got to do better than that. We said in the contract we've got to head towards 3% as quickly as possible. We talked about 6 years from 24, which, as you say, is 2030, and we've got to buy it well rather than the bad procurement that we've seen in the Ministry of Defence in the past. So we've got to do those two things, and to do that, we've got to cut the vast amount of wasteful spending in the welfare system and stopping foreign aid.
And what about the recruitment of Robert Jenrick? It's clearly been a very, very big political story, a feather in the cap of Reform UK and your colleague and leader, Nigel Farage. What would you say, though, to Reform UK supporters who love the party? They love your project, Richard, and that's balanced out by their antipathy towards the Conservative Party. And yet you're bringing in the faces of the failed Tory project. Many are disappointed.
Well, look, what I would say to people is people have said we need extra experience to ensure we can hit the ground running. And that's what
people
we do
with
when
experience
we bring in
of people with experience of open borders and of net zero, of mass migration, of wokery in our public institutions. That's the experience of Nadeem Zahawi and Robert Jenrick.
No.
That's what they're good at.
Hear me out. Robert Jenrick resigned from the cabinet, the only minister to do so, because he was so cross at the inability to control immigration and the inability of his colleagues to recognise that had to be done. And actually, these are people who share our principles and values, strong borders, getting the economy growing, scrapping net stupid zero, and safer streets, strong on law and order. These are the core principles that the Tories failed on, and voters, they won't forgive, they won't forget. Look, we're listening to people, we understand, we get that. Trust us, we're on the right direction.
Richard, great to have you on the show. Look forward to catching up soon. Congratulations on your very positive personal news as well. Wish you every happiness. Richard Tice, MP Deputy Leader of Reform UK, who's got his tail up. He's a happy man, but what do you think? 0344 499 1000. Is Britain broken? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk. Across.
This is Talk Breakfast. Top of the morning to you. Happy Saturday, one and all. Your weekend starts here. And the fallout continues following the defection of former Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick to Reform UK, with a bitter war of words breaking out between the Conservatives and Nigel Farage's insurgent party. So where does this leave the political right as the Tories brand Reform a bunch of liars? Who wins this battle for the soul of British conservatism? And more importantly, who wins in the battle for votes at the next general election? Do they cancel each other out? Is Sir Keir Starmer the real winner from this week's political drama? And the front page of today's Telegraph, the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, says Britain is not broken, our best days lie ahead of us. Is that denial? Is that gaslighting as you struggle to get a GP appointment, to put a roof over your head, to spend a fortune every time you fill your car with petrol or go shopping in the supermarket? Are you being gaslit by a leader of the opposition that doesn't realise how much you're struggling to get that GP appointment or see a dentist or a decent school place for your kids? For that feeling of being safe when you walk down the street, not worried that your phone will be snatched or your watch taken off you or your car stolen or your house burgled? Or concerns you've got about your kids' safety? Is that gaslighting? Is Britain broken? You have the answer because you live in the real world. 03444991000. Let me know your thoughts. Text the word talk and your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. And we'll kick off the hour, as always, on Talk Breakfast every Friday, Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. with Dolan's Dispatch. They don't get it, do they? I was joined on the show yesterday by the former Conservative government minister and lawyer, Sir Robert Buckland. Now, I know Robert very well. He's an experienced politician, he's an intelligent man, and he's a gentleman. But he had some very ungentlemanly things to say about his former colleague, Robert Jenrick, who, as you know, has defected to Reform UK. Now, Buckland accused Jenrick of borderline racism. That's right, he used the R word, he played that card, and he accused his former friend and colleague of being a pound shop Enoch Powell for saying that parts of the Midlands are like a slum and that he didn't see a single white face on a recent visit there. Take a listen to this interview from Talk Breakfast yesterday morning.
That's the sort of toughness that I like to see. I'm proud of her today for what she's done. And I'm sad that a former colleague, close colleague of mine, Robert, we were in cabinet together, in government together for a long time, has now transmogrified from a Conservative into some sort of pound shop Enoch Powell. It really is an edifying spectacle.
Wow, the gloves are off. Pound shop Enoch Powell. Now, Enoch Powell is a former Conservative politician who was accused of racism, particularly in regard to his rivers of blood speech. Is it not a little harsh laying that at Robert Jenrick's door? All he wants to do is scrap net zero and close the border.
No, some of his language in recent months has been really, really bordering on the incendiary. In fact, incendiary. It doesn't help to talk about places in Britain as being entirely absent when it comes to white people. It doesn't help to divide communities.
Well, it was a powerful interview, and later in that interview, I asked Robert to go further. Are you calling Mr. Jenrick borderline racist? And he said, yes, I think it borders on the racist. He used the R word. Now, this is desperate stuff from Sir Robert, a man who ought to know better. Labelling everything racist is normally the domain of the woke left. And it's disappointing to see a respected, intelligent, former Conservative politician indulge in such a cheap tactic. So Jenrick points out that areas of Birmingham were like a slum and that he didn't see a single white face for the duration of his visit. I'm not sure that that's a dog whistle. I'm not sure that's prejudice or racism. I wonder whether it's a statement of fact. Now, it's my view that the majority of Brits, right, the majority of viewers and listeners to this show are not racist and are in fact quite comfortable with sensible, manageable levels of immigration, welcoming people who are going to integrate, they're going to participate in the culture of this country, follow our customs, our traditions, our laws, and immigrants who come here, make something of their lives, are ambitious, that enhance the national project and perhaps most importantly, put in more than they take out. I think that's where the public are. I don't think the public are racist or anti-immigration whatsoever. Now, the Jenrick remarks may be a little blunt, they may be a little incendiary, and he may have been indulging in a little politics with those remarks. He knew they would be picked up on. But what he's also doing is reflecting the concerns of millions of Brits across the country, by the way, multi-ethnic concerns about a rapidly changing society which quite provably nobody voted for. In fact, the Brexit referendum in 2016 was very much a plebiscite on the issue of immigration, with the public very clearly wanting to take back control and to have fewer, not more people coming into the country. But it was the elite establishment and the Conservative governing party, particularly under Boris Johnson, who went the other way with the Boris wave and with the ongoing crisis in the Channel, which was allowed to continue unchecked and get worse. So as far as I can judge, Jenrick's great crime was to say what he saw, which these days will get you cancelled. Let me read this text that's just come in from Suze. She's talking sense. She knows her onions. She says, "Good morning, Mark. Regarding Robert Buckland, not talking about our problems." That's right, not talking about our problems causes division. Parts of my town are like Birmingham, where women are dressed in black shrouds and English is hardly heard. It is not racist to state facts. Suze, ain't that the truth? 03444991000. First time that a live text into the show has gone straight into Dolan's dispatch. Let's get reaction now from Anne in Sussex. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning to you, Mark. Thank you for taking my call.
Well, look, I'm really happy to receive your call, and I want to talk to you about the state of the country. I want to ask you whether Britain is broken. But can we just discuss briefly Robert Buckland's remarks there about his former friend and colleague saying it's racist to go to Birmingham and say, "I didn't see a single white face"? What do you think?
I didn't like his comment. I just think it reflects very badly on him. If somebody has jumped ship, moved, done whatever, surely the best way is to remain silent and not to even give them another breath of publicity. Or if you value your party and you think what they've done is wrong. And I think slating somebody, whoever it is, whichever party, doesn't reflect very well. And I think people would have expected better of maybe, dare I say, a Tory grandee.
Yeah.
Somebody who one once hoped had good values.
This is cheap politics, isn't it? Sir Robert Buckland knows that Robert Jenrick is not a racist man.
Everybody now who says anything about the fact that we have had huge immigration that we didn't ask for will sound racist to those who actually think bringing thousands and thousands of people into the nation is good. It is good to be compassionate and care, which is why we've taken a lot of people from many countries, Ukraine and the Far East. We're not a nasty, mean country. But if you dare say, well, actually, I think we've taken too many because our health service, our schools, everything in this country, the structures are under such pressure, you're called racist.
Indeed, it's a cheap shot, and I agree with Suze there when she said not talking about our problems causes more division. And the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, has doubled down in the Telegraph today, saying that Britain's got problems, but it's not broken. What do you think? Is Britain broken?
I don't like this sentence, broken Britain. I've seen it happen in my very special town in Burgess Hill, when the opposition kept saying it was broken and they were going to take back the town and it needed work done. If you look at it now, it's even more broken. Once you use those words, I think they are harmful, and you take away people's hope and optimism. And that is what's happened with using the terms broken Britain. Be realistic. There are issues that really have got worse over the past 5 years, maybe more because of COVID. But to run down your nation so that what happens, people are leaving the country in despair, and people are not spending. If they have got the money, they're just not going out and consuming. Businesses are going under, and you end up with a broken Britain. It's powerful.
Yes, so therefore you'd be critical of Reform UK for peddling the line that Britain is broken, Anne?
I don't think it would achieve quite what they want. Obviously, they are seeing things that they want changed, that they think are wrong, and I think a lot of the public will agree with. But if they keep using the words broken Britain, in the end, they're not going to achieve what they're aiming for. And of course, the opposition are going to get nastier and more vehement and slate them even more. And in the end, the public are the losers.
And before I let you go, what do you think are the root causes of the problems that face us?
I think, being honest, we had the 2008 crisis. We had 2010, didn't we, when the government, the Conservatives came in and they were told there was no money. And then after that, we had COVID. We've lived through a lot of crisis.
Yeah.
And just slating off people who are trying to sort it. I hate the fact that we frighten people with saying net zero, the world is going to come to an end if we don't stop using this or that, while other countries are soaring ahead. So it leaves us in a very bad state. But the biggest thing is really good education, because we haven't educated people to think and question in the way they should have done. And can I just say, Mark, please, will everybody read the 45 Goals of Communism and tick off what's already happened in this nation? And could they also read Alice Bailey, born in 1880, and the kind of world that she has predicted, which is where the communism rules, I think, come from, because that is what we're living through. And if people don't see what is happening, their children and grandchildren will be the ones who suffer the most.
The 45 goals of communism. And Anne Bailey, what was the thing that we need to read from Anne Bailey?
Alice Bailey, who...
Alice Bailey, sorry.
Alice Bailey, she was English, but she went very weird. But a lot of the world leaders have followed her. It's called the Lucas Trust. It's now, it was the Lucifer Trust. She has a huge department, United Nations, and the world leaders have all been photographed there because they believe her philosophy.
There you go.
To kill the West.
Well, I think you. I don't think it's a conspiracy theory, Anne, because look at what we've had: open borders, eco-communism via net zero. The destruction of Western values, of Western culture, sounds like a bit of a plan to me. Anne, thank you for a brilliant call. Please call me again soon. Have a lovely Saturday. This is a voice note from Perry. All yours, Perry.
It really does annoy me when the Conservatives act like everything would be fine under them. All this nonsense started with them. The decline started with them. You know, I remember the very late James Whale, you know, when he said that he was going into hospital for his cancer treatment. They kept asking him if he was pregnant.
Yeah.
You know, all this nonsense started with them. It was Boris Johnson that dictated what car I can have at 2030. You won't be allowed to have a petrol or diesel car. You will have the car that I say you can have. It was them that started all this net zero nonsense. You know, Ed Miliband is only carrying on the Boris Johnson dream. You know, Boris Johnson is probably Ed Miliband's idol. I wouldn't be surprised with Ed Miliband when he goes home, shuts the door, has a bit of role play with his wife. He tells his wife to put on a grey suit and backcomb her hair so he looks like Boris Johnson. He's just carrying on the Boris Johnson net zero madness. You know, but he's obviously accelerating it. You know, all this started with the Conservatives, and I will never forgive him for that. I used to vote Conservatives, but now for me, it's reform is the only people that are talking sense.
Perry, thank you for a brilliant call, and thank you for that image that I'll never unsee of Boris Johnson in the bedroom, Ed Miliband's bedroom, no less. This is a voice note from Rob in the capital on Kemi Badenoch.
Good morning, Mark. Great show. Kemi Badenoch saying that we're not broken. What planet is that woman on? We are broken. You know, this just proves how out of touch totally the Tories are with what's really going on in this country, because this country has never been in such an awful place. You know, by saying that, she's just shot herself in the foot even more now. I mean, it's a pathetic comment. Absolutely pathetic. Just because she lives in some posh middle class, you know, area somewhere, it doesn't mean that most of us don't. And we have to see what's going on. We have to put up with this mass immigration and the crimes that come with that, and also the poverty and just everything else that's going on in this country at the moment, which is just making this country in a terrible place to live. So yeah, I think she needs to keep her mouth shut actually, and perhaps she does need to get out a bit more.
Rob not pulling his punches there. Rob speaks with authority. He's in Camden in London, which, let me tell you, is a very sketchy area. There's plenty of crime there, plenty of drug use, drug purchasing and sales thereof, lots of muggings. I should know. I live nearby and I was born there. Herbie is in Harrow. Herbie, listen, I wish we had longer. I've only got a minute or two, but what do you think? Is Britain broken?
Of course it's broken, Mark. For God's sake, you've only got to look around and see what's going on. You know, we've got a government that doesn't care, that's putting us in trouble and things like that. Of course it's broken, and for the Conservatives to deny that we're a broken country is insane. Where does she come in from, or where's the Conservatives coming from? They're the ones who started to break it up in the first place. Crazy.
The only thing I would ask you, Herbie, though, what do you think about Anne's point about negativity, that we shouldn't talk the country down too much because we've got big problems, but if you don't have any hope, any positive energy, then you won't achieve anything in life?
Of course you won't. Look, be negative. It's telling you, it's warning you of what is happening.
Yeah.
Britain, wake up, for God's sake. If you can't see what's going on around you, we haven't got a hope in hell of getting out of it. It's as simple as that, Mark.
Wake up, says Herbie. Herbie, call me again soon. We'll have longer next time. My thanks to Herbie and Harrow. Have an excellent Saturday, please. And listen, I'm going to take, in the next part, we've got an amazing studio guest, and then I'm going to take more of your calls. Is Britain broken? That is the conversation. This is Talk Breakfast. It is 9:20.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy.
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lovely to have your company. It's Talk Breakfast. The time is 9:22. More of your calls shortly. Is Britain broken? But first up, let me just say that we've had so many big political stories of the day. Let's get reaction from Sophia Slay, who is the Whitehall correspondent at The Sun newspaper. Good morning, Sophia.
Good morning.
What a week for a politics fan.
Absolutely bonkers week. It's just been crazy. It was actually, the government were having an all right week, but forget about that. That's just been completely overwritten. We've got this this sort of psychodrama on the right of British politics that has just dominated the headlines for, what, 3 days now, and it's still going. We've got interviews with Kemi in other papers. We've got, you know, Jenrick on the broadcast rounds. It's just non-stop now.
It's huge. Well, we've got some breaking news. Robert Jenrick has been on the social media platform X, and he's posted the following. He writes, and there you have it. According to Kemi, Britain is not broken. She needs to get out more. Yikes. The gloves are off.
Yeah, well, I'd say more than that. The knives are out, aren't they? It's quite vicious. I think this is quite a dividing line, isn't it? I can see this morning through interviews that Kemi's done, the things that Robert's saying like that on social media. The dividing line is Robert's vision and Kemi's vision. Kemi is going for this kind of positive, OK, things aren't great, but Britain is not broken. That's her vibe. That's her. She's going for a positive, you know, it's not broken. Our better days are ahead of us. Look, we've got solutions for the problems. Look to the Tories. Whereas Robert is saying Britain is broken, which is a lot of things, a lot of the British public are saying that. I hear that all the time. I actually text that to my friends sometimes, you know, when my train's late or something doesn't work, or I'm on the phone to, you know, some useless person that can't fix something for me. You know, Britain is broken. It's kind of the thing we all sort of say all the time. And so that's his more pessimistic vision. You know, look at the problems with our country. The only solution is reform. So I think that's quite a clear dividing line in political messaging that has really burst out this morning and today.
Well, that's right. The Tories are a little torn over this issue about whether to declare the country broken, given that they were in charge for 14 years. That's why they're so compromised on this one.
Yeah, totally.
And Reform can just puff their chests out and say Britain's broken, nothing to do with me, Gov, that's the difference. Isn't the point, and I take the view of Anne, who spoke to me on the show earlier, she called the programme, and she said, look, it's very negative to say Britain is broken and you need hope. And I hear what Anne is saying, but the only alternative view is that if you actually acknowledge that the country's broken, that it's not working, that's when you can then drum up the political will to change things. If your platform is to say Britain's not broken, then it sounds like continuity.
True, but you have to have policies to back up. If you're saying Britain is broken, and it will be the test, you know, we'll see it at the local elections. The real test will be the general election. Do people want to buy what you're selling? And at the end of the day, politicians are salesmen and women. You know, they need to sell a product to the public. And does positive or negative sell? Usually positive messaging does sell quite well. It might be a different case at the next general election because things aren't working as they should be. People are quite fed up. There is a lot of anger out there, a lot of frustration, a real anger at the mainstream parties as they're sort of being dubbed Labour and the Conservatives. So I think, yeah, the test will be, you know, does the public buy this messaging?
Most definitely. Was it a good or a bad week for Kemi Badenoch?
This is an interesting one. I think it was a good week in some ways, in that she looks strong, she looks confident. The Tories are circling the wagons. You know, they see Robert Jenrick as treacherous. They're quite angry with him, and they are pleased that their leader made a bold move. However, there is an element where, you know, this is an ongoing war. She's not winning the war. You know, Reform are doing very well in the polls. She's won this battle, is how I would see it. I think she's done well to win this battle. She's struck at Jenrick, caught him out, and, you know, forced him out in a show of strength on her part, which was very clever and quite sort of Machiavellian. However, long term, the public's really looking at Reform. You know, Robert Jenrick may have given that party even more of a boost. They are going to probably do quite well or very well in the local elections. So that's really what we're looking at long term.
Indeed, and Robert Jenrick's presence within that Tory shadow cabinet was reassuring to some Conservative voters that this was a party that had basically learnt from its mistakes and was still a truly right-wing party. He's now gone, so is there a risk that he'll take some of that support with them? The Lib Demification of the Tories will continue apace in his absence.
Perhaps, yeah, although there are a lot of Conservatives, and, you know, you've got to remember a lot of Conservatives, the kind of blue wall, they are quite Lib Demi-facing. They are very cross with Robert Jenrick, and in a sort of true blue Conservative sense, I think it's probably strengthened Kemi with her own base.
But you don't win an election with the so-called blue wall, do you? And I just wonder whether it's a red flag for the leader of the opposition that people like Michael Heseltine and Robert Buckland are pleased to see the back of Jenrick. Well, this is not support that the Tories need to consolidate. It's the red wall. It's anybody that quite likes the look of Nigel Farage.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're in quite a difficult position, and they need to really figure out. I mean, it feels like they're obviously going for that right wing and, you know, reform-facing approach, but they are bleeding out on both sides. You know, whether that's, you know, the red wall seats that they won under Boris or their traditional blue wall, you know, heartlands, they're bleeding out on both sides. So I think they need to really come up with a clever strategy, right, to focus, you know, across the board.
Do you think that Robert Jenrick was nailed on to leave the Conservative Party?
Oh, that's a good question. It feels like all too much of sort of convenient coincidences that it wasn't not going to happen. Do you know what I mean? That speech seemed pretty emphatic.
And it seemed ready.
Yes, it seemed. I don't get the sense it was going to happen within days, but you certainly got the sense it was sharpish soon.
And probably, yeah, pre-local elections.
Yeah.
What do you make of Nigel Farage's deadline of May the 7th for defectors to come forward?
To come across. Yeah, I can understand why he's done it, because the number one question most journalists, you know, are asking, and I think the public are probably thinking, is, well, aren't you just becoming the Conservative Party 2.0? So I do understand why he's sort of saying, come now. It makes a lot of sense. And really, what he really wants and what he really needs is Labour defections. And, you know, they're going to get one apparently next week.
Do you think it will be a sitting Labour MP? Because I think it has to be. If it's just an ex-Labour MP that pops up a lot on Talk and elsewhere, that sounds quite right-wing these days, I don't think that's a big story. I think it needs to be a sitting Labour MP, doesn't it?
I think a big scalp would be a sitting Labour MP. I would be very surprised if a sitting Labour MP did defect next
Graham
week.
Stringer, Carl Turner?
I can't see that happening. I mean, you know, never say never. It could
But I mean, would it get your pulse racing if the announcement was Kate Hoey or Lord Glassman? You know, both very, very adept public speakers, intelligent, interesting people. But is that a mic drop?
No, and they're big figures sort of within politics, but do they cut through to the wider public? No. Would a story like that cut through to the wider public? Probably not. I think, you know, if I was Nigel, I would want a sitting MP, but no, I can't see sitting MPs going now. It makes no sense. If I was a sitting Labour MP, I would, and I was thinking, I might lose my seat, I would wait until way closer to the general election to go. It just doesn't make sense to go right now. You know, you're going to see the lay of the land in, you know, 3 years or whatever, and then I'd make a decision.
Some of the language from Mr Farage at the Robert Jenrick press conference was significant. He kept referring to the centre-right of politics, and he's welcoming Conservative MPs. He's going to have a Labour figure next week. What's the strategy here, do you think?
I think he's trying to have a broad appeal.
Centre ground.
I think
is that where you win elections? Is that a myth?
Well, it is really, isn't it? You know, you sort of the funny thing about the mainstream parties, always, you know, whenever someone's running for leader, whether they're Labour, you know, they play to their left-wing base. They sort of tout sort of strong left-wing policies when they're trying to be elected leader of their party. On the flip reverse, when you look to the Conservatives, when you want to be a Tory leader, you know, the prospective candidates always drum the beat for right-wing policies, and then when they get that position, they usually win the elections when they swing to the centre and become a little bit more moderate, a little bit more generic.
Is there a risk, though, that upsets the base? Because the popularity of Reform UK is largely fuelled by the public's antipathy to the Tories. If he brings in clapped-out ex-cabinet ministers from the failed Tory project, does that hurt his brand?
I think you can see that frustration. That's probably why he's given the deadline for Tories to defect. You can see sort of, not that that's ever like a good reflection of real life, but online you see this frustration with Reform voters that, you know, yet another sort of Conservative defector has come across. You know, a lot of people have gone to Reform because they are angry with the Conservatives. They don't like Labour, but they are also very angry with the Conservatives, and they want Reform to be different, and they can't forgive the Conservatives. So there's definitely a risk there.
Are there any other major scalps that Nigel Farage would enviously be looking at that he'd like to take from the Tory ranks? For example, Suella Braverman, Ian Duncan Smith, David Davis, someone like that.
They are household names, I would say, really. Sort of, Ian Duncan Smith certainly is a household name. I couldn't see that happening, but he would want big names, sitting MPs. They are the prize, aren't they? Really.
Yes, and somebody like IDS, that would be quite extraordinary, wouldn't it? Former leader of the party, very much on the right of the party. That's someone that Nigel would welcome into the reform fold. I think you'll agree. You can't really get a cigarette paper between IDS and Farage, except maybe over China, but that's another story. And Russia. But what about Suella Braverman? Isn't she, the next obvious name to come across?
She's been talked about for ages, but she hasn't dipped a toe yet. But
it hasn't helped that she had a bit of a falling out with the party leadership.
About
a year ago, and her husband stepped in to defend her.
As you can see with Robert Jenrick, he's had public ding-dongs with Zia Yusuf, and now they are one family. So.
Yeah, they mostly are. So is this going to dominate tomorrow's Sun on Sunday?
I think it will, yeah.
Yeah, it's
not going away.
A massive story. It's not going anyway. So Kemi has won the war, but not the battle, said Sophia Slay. Sophia, look forward to seeing you really soon. Sophia Slay is the Whitehall correspondent of the Sun newspaper. Is Britain broken? Your call's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is now 9:35. Is Britain broken? And what about these remarks by Robert Buckland about his former friend and colleague, Robert Jenrick, who's gone to Reform UK. Robert Jenrick went to Birmingham and he said, look, at some of it, parts of Birmingham are like a slum, and I've not seen a white face since I got here. Is that racist? Well, Yvonne says, good morning, Mark. The racism comment no longer means anything anymore. It's just used as a cheap shot for inarticulate people who cannot put forward a reasoned argument. Kevin is in Portsmouth. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Mark. Just a point about Robert Jenrick. When he defected to the Reform, I was very, very sort of wary about it.
Yeah.
Kemi Badenoch comes out and says, yeah, Britain's not broken. I thought, great, Rob, you're welcome. Come and join the club. But as far as his past in the Cabinet is concerned, the Cabinet is a committee. And a committee will have a vote. Listen to the argument, have a vote. And if you're on that committee, you have to go with the collective decision of the committee. You might not like it, but if you're going to be on that committee, you've got to run with it.
Yeah.
He resigned from that committee, from the Cabinet, on immigration issues because he was sick of the nonsense that was going on there and what Kemi has now confirmed as Tory groupthink. So, yes, Nigel needs to be extremely careful about which defectors he welcomes. I'm very ambivalent about Nadeem Zahawi.
Yeah.
I'll be fascinated to see who the Labour one is that he trailed. But by and large, if people have looked at what's going on and think this really isn't working from either side of the uni, either wing of the uni party, if you like, then they've got nowhere else to go apart from Reform. So providing they're not moles and they're not sort of sleepers, fair enough.
Is there a danger, Kevin, that Reform UK start to look like a retirement home for rejected Tories?
Well, Robert Jenrick wasn't a rejected Tory. I suppose he was because she kicked him out before he could actually do the transition. Rejected Tories, those who've lost their seats, well, most of them lost their seats. I don't know. I mean, again, that's what I said. Nigel's got to be very, very careful as to who he welcomes, and he needs to really do an in-depth check on their background. Because let's face it, the biggest sleeper we all liked was Boris Johnson. Wonderful carry, great guy to have dinner, tremendously entertaining, very, very clever. But look at the mess he made of the country.
Yeah.
The Boris wave, the COVID, messing around with the 2030 all green cars, which is never going to happen.
Yeah.
2026 now, and it's not showing any signs of going in that direction. And I can talk to you more. So he's got to really, really very carefully at where their true motives lie, as opposed to they're on that committee. They've got to go with the majority of the committee, majority of the will of the committee, which is democracy after all. So that's something I think he needs to really, really investigate them right back to the cradle to make sure that they're not going to bring all sorts of wacky ideas in.
Kevin, you are so right, and not to be infected with that sort of Lib Dem mentality that has, I'm afraid, dominated the most recent Tory administrations. Kevin, you're so right. What a brilliant call. You're very right about Boris Johnson, by the way. He's the elephant in the room when it comes to Tory failure. Him and Theresa May, I think, are the culprits regarding the legacy that this country has been left with. Georgina is in the capital. Good morning, Georgina.
Good morning. Great to speak to you. Please don't forget Tony Blair when you talk about the failings of this country. Yes, it was Boris and it was Theresa, but Tony Blair was the catalyst. Let's not forget that.
Yes, and Theresa May, not to interrupt you, Georgina, but Theresa May and Boris Johnson, what they did is they protected his legacy rather than the legacy of Margaret Thatcher.
Yes, they exacerbated the situation catastrophically, Mark. But it's terrifying when you go into any of our major cities now, London, Birmingham, Manchester, and you see the amount of foreign nationals. It feels like we are now the foreigners in our own country. And if you speak about it, you're called a racist, as Lord Buckland demonstrated yesterday. This is the problem we have in Britain. We're not allowed an opinion in fear of offending. Politicians now are afraid of their own shadows so far as political correctness is concerned, and this cultural cohesion. And they're going through Parliament like hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, when in reality, we as British citizens are surrounded by evil. The evil of communism, the evil of poverty, the evil of sexual abuse, the evil of corruption. We haven't even got our own basic democratic rights anymore. It's individuals like Buckland that need to take off the blinkers and see things for what they really are. Take a walk down any London high street and see and count how many ethnic clothes shops, how many Turkish barbers, be a rebel and count how many foreign nationals are on the streets in comparison to how many white faces you see. Is that racist? We're being told what to eat, what to drive, how to heat our homes, but more terrifyingly, Mark, we're now being told what to think. We've been left defenceless. We have no army, we have no navy, we have no air force, and our working class people are struggling with everyday expenditure. Poverty is rife. Our veterans, elderly and disabled are forgotten and discarded. And all politicians seem to worry about is the fact that they don't sound racist. It's absolutely disgraceful, and I am embarrassed about it.
Georgina, can I ask you whether Jenrick's remarks were really focused on the fact that we've had an ever-changing society that no one voted for, unprecedented demographic change that was never in a manifesto? Was that his point? And was it therefore unhelpful of him to invoke skin colour rather than the cultural angle to this?
Well, I think now with Robert Jenrick, I think the young man has nothing to lose. Yes, he has deflected from the Conservative Party, and he's now waiting for a position in reform. But he hasn't got a position yet, so he had nothing to lose. So he stood at his pulpit and he spoke the truth. He thought, throw caution to the wind, tell the people what's actually going on in government. And he did that. And I admire him for that. It's the first time I've heard candour and honesty for a long time. And I take my hat off to that young man, because he knew that he was damned if he did, damned if he didn't. So he thought, what the heck? I'm going to say it as it is. So he told the British public what's actually going on in government. They don't care about this illegal immigration. They'll just let it go on. Then they've got no interest, Mark, about getting us out of the EHCHR, because that's the only way we can actually start to put policies in place to get this sorry state sorted out. You know, we're waiting for someone to have the testicular fortitude to come and sort out this mess, and we're still waiting. And I think the only time that's going to happen is when we get rid of this communist Labour government and get reform in, because we are desperate now for a change of government.
Georgina, thank you so much for your call, and thank you for the expression testicular fortitude. 44 minutes past 9 in the morning. If ever I start a heavy metal band, I'm going to call it Testicular Fortitude, and I'm going to send you royalties. What a brilliant call, Georgina. Really enjoyed your company. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Skin colour. You know, is that the way that you debate these issues in regard to our ever-changing society? Is it helpful? Is it unhelpful? Let me know. This is a voice note from Glenn on Kemi Badenoch.
Morning, Mark. Glenn from Suffolk here. I'm just watching your programme and I see the headline, Kemi Badenoch slams critics who say the UK is in decay. You know, therein lies the problem. Like the chap you had on yesterday, the KC, these people, it's the apathy. They do not recognise what's staring them in the face. I'm a regular man. My wife and I are really regular lives. We work hard. And we can sit around us all day, every day. This country is broken. And when Badenoch slams critics for saying it's in decay, she's just in denial. It's ridiculous. She's in denial like that chap you spoke to yesterday. Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you for a great voice note. Appreciate that, Glenn. Good morning, Mark. Red from Southampton here. Your earlier guest nailed it, and she nails it every time she speaks. This is Georgina from London. She's the true voice of the people. She's the Britain that I want. Love her 2 bits. Dawn says, have Georgina in the studio. I think she is amazing. And Dan in Kent, Sir Robert Buckland is typical of how the long-serving Conservatives have moved to the centre ground on migration and totally ignored the core of their dominant voters. Get to more of your thoughts on that very, very shortly. But folks, very excited about this. Find out how you could be in with a chance of winning a trip of a lifetime to San Francisco, USA. Talk is giving away flights, a 3-night stay and a 4-star intercontinental hotel stay, and $2,500 spending money. So let me take you through this again, right? This is San Francisco, USA, trip of a lifetime. Talk is giving away flights, a 3-night stay at a 4-star intercontinental hotel, and £2,500 worth of spending money, plus tickets to the Super Bowl to top it all off. Take a listen to find out how you can enter.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at TalkSport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Brilliant stuff. Listen, there you go. 9:47, I should say, on Talk Breakfast. We are very excited because next up we are going to zero in on a special year, which is 1981, with Virgin Radio Steve Denyer. It's Retro Rewind, where we choose the year and take a walk down memory lane. So what are your memories of 1981? What are your fun facts? What were the big moments of 1981? You're allowed to use the internet to jog your memory, but your memories of 1981, we're going to focus on that next.
every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is 9:50, you're listening to Talk Breakfast. Time now for Retro Rewind, in which we choose a magical year and have a walk down memory lane in the company of Virgin Radio's Steve Denyer. Top of the morning, Steve-o.
Very good morning. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Listen, 81. I mean, you had me at 80 because I thought it was a great decade.
Yes.
For music, for fashion, for TV and film. Why did you choose 81 in particular?
Mainly because, and we get into this in a moment, it was a huge, huge year for monumental things that we still watch now. We have clips about whether it's news, whether it was, you know, the MTV launch of Charles and Diana wedding, which we'll get to in a second. Let's begin, though, with stateside news. Ronald Reagan became the 40th president of the United States of America. Interestingly enough, knowing what we know now, back in 1981, he was the oldest president, so 69 years old. He was viewed as super, super old. Obviously, you know, a movie star, Hollywood star, kind of has slight similarities to the Donald Trump thing, you know, huge media star before. People said that they would never have dreamt in a million years that Ronald Reagan would become the president of the United States of America. And he did it with Reaganomics, do you remember? Yep. And the hope of a better time and to boost the economy. One of the most shocking moments, so Ronald Reagan became the president on January the 20th, but on March the 30th, you'll probably remember this moment happening, which sent shockwaves around the world, the assassination attempt. Take a look at this if you want to.
That looks like one of the earliest viral videos that, you know, that moment had been caught on camera and has been watched ever since.
Isn't it?
So this is a guy whose presidency could have gone in the blink of an eye.
Absolutely. He was shot outside a Washington hotel by this guy. The bullet pierced his lung, narrowly missed his heart. After watching that footage, he was obviously, blue lit to a hospital. And apparently, Reagan being Reagan, he had a great sense of humour. He's on the surgeon's bed, ready to be operated, and he said to the surgeons, "I hope you guys are Republicans."
That's just a brilliant line, isn't it? He was a very witty man.
Yeah.
And there was another occasion, and it was a few months after that, following his recovery from an attempted assassination, that he was on stage at a hustings somewhere, and a balloon exploded. And he immediately responded and said, "They missed me this time."
Yeah.
And so that's how, you know, quick-witted the guy was. And this is a man who made his impact felt in the United States. A two-term president, and the Reagan era, a significant moment in American history. Of course, glasnost, you know, the complete redrawing of the political map. The Soviet Union collapses. Margaret Thatcher and Reagan were pretty close pals.
Of course, I mean, that's what I remember. I was at school back in this era, and it was all, you know, watching the news, it was Reagan and Thatcher, wasn't it? Yeah. And they had a quite up and down relationship, but she was pretty much the boss, I think, in that relationship.
Yeah, she was firm with him, even though he was the president of the US.
It's incredible, isn't it?
She used her quiet female power and her powers of persuasion and occasionally would handbag him.
Yes, yeah, there are clips. There
was mutual respect, and I think maybe that's where you could say. I mean, obviously you've got Churchill during the war, but that was very much the essence of the special relationship between those two, wasn't it?
And they were both around for the whole decade as well, so the decade was very much their kind of terms and their presence. Let me take you closer to home. This was the year, the most viewed kind of televisual event before there were viral moments. Charles and Diana got married. Should we take a little look at the day? St Paul's Cathedral, all eyes were on London, England. Look at this from 1980.
Prince and Princess of Wales. And she steps forward on his arm, as they will do now through life. And if there's any heart that hasn't been won over by her today, it can kindly surrender now. A curtsy to the Queen before she leaves. Out into the open air and into the world and the world's cheers.
You can imagine people all over the country now saying, I want to copy that dress.
And the Queen, Mrs. Shamkin too, Lord Spencer, Lord Mayor of London, Duke of Edinburgh, all waving goodbye.
You cannot convey, can you, the sheer scale of that event?
I mean, literally
the global reach of it.
750 million people. This was actually watching the event live around the world. Watched it. The dress was 25 foot, apparently, the longest in royal wedding history. Diana accidentally messed Charles's name up in the cathedral. She was terrified. And do you remember the whole world said this is the fairy tale wedding? Yeah. But she looked back and said she was like a lamb to the slaughter. Looking back on it, at the time, it went very, very downhill soon after. But it's one of those moments that, we were all given days off to watch the wedding.
Because that's
on
the
that
thing,
day.
it was a ceremonial moment, and it was also a cultural moment as well.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And a great way for the UK to kick off the decade, really. It put us on the map, and it was at a time when, just off the back of the 70s, all that economic doom and gloom, it was a new chapter for the country. The young royal couple, a relatively new Prime Minister. 83, you get the war in the Falklands, and at that point the country seems to just take off. We've been having a long conversation today. Is Britain broken? Well, into the 80s it certainly wasn't. It was going in a different direction.
It really was, especially within this year, within this chapter. We just got into a new decade, and whenever you go to St Paul's, you think of that wedding. I do. Whenever I'm passing,
Absolutely.
I think this happened here on these steps. Now,
and remember the tea towels and the teapots and the cups?
Of course, they're still being sold in shops around here. There's still little kind of things of mini Dianas and what have you. Let me take you to the summer of the year. Massive, obviously, we talk about this lots on Virgin Radio, the MTV generation. MTV launched on the 1st of August 1981. In fact, 4 days after Charles and Diana got married. This is how it launched. This is how the world saw the beginning of MTV. Watch this, the countdown.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. We've gone for main engine start. We have main engine start.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll.
MTV, so-called music television, why was that so significant culturally?
Well, they used to do this crazy thing. They used to actually play music videos to begin with. And they didn't have many, it really started this whole thing of artists having to put a lot of effort into their image. But it did showcase some brilliant videos,
Yes, and they all upped their game, because previously you'd have sort of Elton John at the piano in a BBC studio.
Somebody filming something
that was
live.
The video.
And then next thing you got, Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer video. He spent 16 hours under a sheet of glass so they could animate, the dancing chickens and the vegetables.
Was it the pieces of fruit on his face?
This is
right.
Vegetables? Yeah.
Of course, I Want to Break Free, Queen, another very, very strong video where they're dressed up as women doing the vacuuming in the house.
Yeah, we got that because that was based on Coronation Street, and the Americans thought it was strange and they banned that video, the I Want to Break Free.
Which is probably really good, probably put it to #1.
Yeah.
The Thriller Thriller, of course, Michael Jackson.
Yeah, that was to come in '83. We just got a couple of messages from people saying, Superman 2 apparently was the huge movie that lots of people remember. That was Terence Stamp as General Zod. It's a great movie. They made Superman 2 the same time as Superman 1.